Chapter 151. The body of the man in front of me was as hard as steel. They even began to doubt whether the things in their hands were toys. Then, amid their terrified expressions, the blazing laser in the man's eyes lit up again. The next second, several people were cut in half and fell in a pool of blood. Until they died, they didn't know what kind of existence they had offended. After dealing with these soldiers, Roca swept his eyes across the entire military base. Any soldier hiding could not escape his eyes. After the entire military base was wiped out, Roca flew into the sky and his heat vision burst out again, destroying the entire military base. After doing all this, he left with satisfaction. From the beginning to the end, he had no intention of concealing his identity. Perhaps his actions had been seen by others. But it doesn't matter. Since he has been exposed under the military's nose, he will let everyone know the consequences of angering him. And he will not let this matter go. Selena, let me investigate something. Roca wanted to see who else was behind this matter, and then find out and get rid of them all. Don't worry, Allison and the others have already told me about this matter. I have already sent people to investigate, and I can also send some vampires to protect Allison and the others. Selena, you are so thoughtful. Roca was deeply moved. Among his women, Selena was the most capable. She would take the initiative to arrange things without anyone saying anything. It's really worry-free. Where can I find another woman as capable as this? If you really want to thank me, how about coming to accompany me later? Selena said in a seductive voice. Of course, no problem, baby, just wait for me. As for Selena's request, Ka would definitely not refuse it. After hanging up the phone, Roca looked at the system prompts. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission Different Dimension Killing Array. Rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host for increasing his Kryptonian bloodline by 1%. Not bad. He found that the tasks he completed had increased by at least 1%, but most of the commissions he asked werewolves and vampires to complete were only 0.5%. This may have something to do with doing it yourself. But it's not bad. After all, the people under him have completed many commissions. Return to where Nevin and Worth are hiding. Let's go. What was the explosion just now? Worth asked, somewhat puzzled. Don't ask if you shouldn't. Roca glanced at him, then grabbed two people, one in each hand, and flew out quickly. The sudden change made the two of them scream loudly, but when the cold wind blew, they immediately shut their mouths. After a moment. New York City. You guys can go back by yourselves next time, and don't forget to pay the commission. Roca said and prepared to leave. Wait, how are we supposed to pay? Nevin called him anxiously. Oh, I forgot about that. Roca slapped his forehead. He actually forgot about this. You can just search for the exorcism agency online and then remit the money to the company. I see. Goodbye, then. Roca's mouth corners slightly raised, and his figure flashed and disappeared in front of the two people. Nevin and Worth looked at each other, neither of them spoke, and they parted ways. The other side. When Roca returned home, he found that everyone was gathered together, even Wendy and Julie were there. Hey, they're all here. Roca flew in through the window, startling everyone. Honey, why did you just come back? Roca, are you okay? Did the FBI do anything to you? What happened? The girls all talked at once and showed great concern for him. Okay, listen to me. Roca raised his hands and pressed them down, which made the girls stop their concern and questioning. Don't worry, I'm back. It's just that some blind people are causing trouble. Roca briefly explained the matter. In fact, this matter is not complicated, because he has demonstrated extraordinary abilities when handling various commissions. That's why they were specially targeted. Of course, maybe it is related to the last fog incident. After all, although he destroyed the military base that opened the channel to the other dimension, if he dug deeper, he might be able to find some clues. The value of the Misty World is worth it. Of course, Roca has many secrets, such as the super soldier serum. But no matter who wants to cause trouble for him, he must be prepared to face his fellow countrymen. Roca didn't talk too much with the girls, and they didn't have to worry about these things at all. Okay, forget about that. I think we can do something more meaningful while everyone is here. Roca said this with a malicious smile. Allison and Maria, who were familiar with him, knew that he was going to do something bad, so they immediately stayed away from him. Only Sarah and Sophia were still a little ignorant. Hey, Sala caught you. Roca grabbed Sala before she could react, and then used his hands to gently press her huge N-shaped breasts. Allison and Tina couldn't help but roll their eyes when seeing this scene. This guy has started again. I really don't know where he gets so much energy. We had just fought a fierce battle with the military. However, it is precisely because of his inexhaustible energy that there are no conflicts when everyone is together. After all, everyone is full. A few days later, Roca flew to Paris. Last time I promised Selena that I would spend more time with her, so of course I can't go back on my word. Hey Serena baby, you are so busy now. Roca was quite resentful that Selena didn't come to pick him up at the airport because she was very busy. Serena smiled helplessly, because something happened. Dear, you came at the right time, can you help me solve the problem? Well? Who dares to cause trouble to you? Roca raised an eyebrow. The thing is, there is a group of werewolves and vampires in Washington state, and I wanted to subdue them. Then just subdue him. With your current strength, it should be easy for you to deal with even a vampire elder. Selena is now the descendant of the vampire ancestor, possessing the advantages of both vampires and werewolves. She is not afraid of sunlight or silver. Plus an injection of super soldier serum. She is so powerful that she can easily deal with the 3 vampire elders at the same time. Is there a vampire in this world that is more powerful than the 3 vampire elders? Chapter 152. Serena couldn't help but roll her eyes. How dare you ask? You've given me so much work, how can I have time to leave? When Roca heard this, he felt a little embarrassed. It seemed that he had indeed left a lot of work to Selena, such as the construction of monster shelters in Silent Hill and Carlson Manor. Although Heather is handling Carlson Manor, Selena still needs help with some things. Then there is the construction of Silent Hill, which is not something that can be completed in a short period of time. After all, Roca's request was to demolish the original Silent Hill and rebuild a modern town. This is a huge project. She is also needed for the research on the blood orchid, including the investigation of 245 trioxide. Finally, there are vampires and werewolves to manage. In short, she has been very busy during this period. Fortunately, she is a vampire, otherwise she would be too busy. After all, there are only a few vampires left now, so she has to handle some things personally. Okay, thank you for your hard work, baby Selena. Roca hugged Selena and gave her a deep kiss. Just tell me, baby. Leave any troubles to me. Selena couldn't help but roll her eyes at him, then grabbed his hand that was playing tricks in her clothes. You also know that there are not many werewolves and vampires left now. I heard that there is also a werewolf and vampire force in Washington state, and they seem to be preparing for a fight recently, so I plan to recruit them all, and even sent some vampires and werewolves there, but the situation has not been optimistic until now. Selena originally wanted to send people to recruit the vampire and werewolf forces in Washington state. But it seems that things are not going so smoothly. Even the werewolves and vampires she sent out suffered losses. This was a little hard for her to accept, but she couldn't go there in person. That's why I plan to let Roca go. No problem, leave this to me. After understanding what happened, Roca patted his chest and promised to defeat the vampire and werewolf forces. Selena naturally trusted him immensely. Can I leave tomorrow? Certainly. Selena raised her eyebrows. She also hoped that Roca could spend more time with her, so how could she refuse this request? If the situation wasn't so serious this time, she wouldn't have let Roca leave. When Roca heard this, he immediately picked her up and carried her like a princess. Then time is running out, so don't waste it here. Selena couldn't help but roll her eyes at him, then she put her arms around his neck, her sharp fangs rubbing against his aorta involuntarily. Hey, I knew you hadn't given up on trying my blood. Noticing Selena's actions, Roca recalled that Selena once asked to taste his blood. Is that okay? Serena licked her lips seductively. If you can bite through it, I don't mind. Roca shrugged and then carried her back to the room. When Selena heard his agreement, her eyes lit up and she bit his neck. But the next moment she opened her mouth with a bitter face. Roca looked at her with amusement. What? You're not going to bite anymore? So hard. Selena looked like she wanted to cry but had no tears. She had no idea that Roca's skin was so hard that she couldn't bite it at all. It even hurt her teeth. Ha ha ha! Roca burst into laughter when he saw her expression. then he lowered his head and whispered in Serena's ear, "Don't give up, there's still a place you can bite." "Where?" Selena was stunned for a moment and then asked with some excitement. "Come to the room." Roca put Selena down and patted her head. "This is it." Selena understood what he meant instantly, and this huge reversal made her roll her eyes. Then it bared its blood-sucking fangs threateningly. Roca was not afraid at all. With his body, a nuclear bomb explosion would be just a breeze, and his fangs were not a threat at all. The next day, at Selena's urging, Roca had no choice but to set off for the small town of Forks in Washington state. According to Selena, the 2 vampires and 2 werewolves she sent out met with an accident here, and no news has been sent back yet. It is estimated that they are in great danger. Roca was a little curious about the origins of the vampires and werewolves in this area. The small town of Fox seems very peaceful, without the hustle and bustle of a big city. You can't hear the long car horns or the noise of the crowd here, only the occasional bird calls or the rustling of leaves in the wind. Even if there are vehicles passing by, they will quickly disappear at the end of the quiet road. However, on this quiet street, there was a sound of tires rubbing against each other. Crunch. Roca, who was driving a limited edition red Ferrari, parked the car with a drift, and at this moment he became the most handsome guy on the street. The dazzling luxury sports car, the 1.80-meter tall figure and the handsome appearance made the high school girls who had just finished school not far away scream. But in fact, Roca just got off the car to buy a pack of cigarettes. When he came out of the convenience store, the area around June was already full of onlookers. For this small town, such a luxury car is rarely seen in a few years. "I didn't expect that they would see me today. I'm sorry, could you please move aside for a moment?" Roca, wearing a white shirt, greeted everyone politely. The onlookers who heard the sound screamed and quickly made way. "So handsome! Even more handsome up close! So handsome! This handsome guy is so stylish and has such a good temperament. He has nice muscles, he must be 3.7 meters tall. Hey, man, your car is really awesome." Roca ignored the onlookers. "When I was about to drive away, I saw a van not far away seemed to have lost control and rushed straight to the other side. And an unaware girl happened to be blocking the van. When the girl noticed it, she tried to dodge in fear and accidentally fell down. It was at this critical moment. A figure suddenly appeared beside her, with his strong arms around her soft and slender waist, and his other hand holding down the van that was hitting her. Boom! With a loud bang, the body of the van was directly deformed. They. Chapter 153. It all happened in a flash. It was not until everything was over that the people around him reacted. Including the girl in Roca's arms. The girl has brown wavy hair, delicate and perfect facial features, fair skin, and a pair of big chocolate brown eyes that look quite lively and beautiful. Beautiful. It's so beautiful. Even though Roca had seen many beautiful women, he couldn't help but admire the beauty of the girl in his arms. She is like Snow White in the fairy tale, so beautiful that it takes your breath away. Just when he was looking at the girl also stared at him motionlessly. "Are you okay?" Roca asked softly after helping her up. "No, it's okay." The girl quickly stood up, her pretty face slightly red, and looked away. When she noticed the van nearby, she remembered that she was almost hit by a car. She was horrified for a moment. But when she saw the deep slap mark on the van, her eyes widened. Only then did she realize that this tall and handsome boy in front of her had actually blocked the speeding van with one hand. How is this possible? "Just call me Roca, what about you?" Roca looked at her with interest. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that he had seen this beauty before somewhere. "Isabella Swan, you can call me Bella." "Bella, a nice name." Roca suddenly realized that he finally remembered who this exquisite and beautiful girl in front of him was. Ding! The system has updated the task Twilight 1, please protect Isabella Swan from becoming a vampire too as expected. Roca had always wondered where the vampires and werewolves here came from. After all this time, it turned out to be from Twilight. No wonder all the vampires and werewolves sent by Selena have disappeared without a trace. After all, the vampires and werewolves here are quite powerful. Unlike Selena and other vampires, the vampires here are not only not afraid of the sun, but each of them has special superpowers. For example, predicting the future, creating protective shields, manipulating other people's emotions, reading minds, etc. The vampire clan that Selena belongs to does not have this advantage. Of course, it cannot be said that the vampires here are definitely stronger than the vampires that Selena belongs to. Perhaps the vampires and werewolves sent over were careless. Roca, who are you? At this time Bella looked at his handsome face curiously. Do you believe me when I say I am an ordinary person? Roca chuckled. Pucci Bella laughed, I don't believe it. How can you be an ordinary person when you are so strong? Roca shrugged, well, actually I am Superman who saves the world. Ha ha ha. Bella was amused again, her eyes curved into crescents, clear and bright, and her laughter was as crisp and sweet as a silver bell. Walk. Roca suddenly took her fair and smooth hand and left. Where are you going? Bella was startled by his action, and before she could react, she arrived in front of a very beautiful red convertible sports car. What are you standing there for? Get in the car. Roca opened the car door for her like a gentleman. Bella's eyes widened when she reacted, and she was then pushed onto the passenger seat. Diddy. Roca got in the driver's seat and honked the horn. Soon the crowd tactfully made way. Woo woo woo. The powerful engine sound of the sports car sounded like an explosion, and then it flew out with a whoosh. The speed was so fast that Bella screamed and closed her eyes. After the car slowed down for a while, he opened his eyes curiously. Feeling the thrilling speed and passion, Bella's heart was also beating fast for a moment, and she couldn't help but shouting out loud. It took me a while to vent my feelings. At this time, Roca also slowed down the speed of the car. At this time, the two had left the town and came to a green field. Feel the breeze and smell the flowers in the fields. It is really intoxicating. I can see that you are usually in a very depressed mood. Did something happen? Roca glanced at her pretty fair face and asked with a smile. Bella was stunned for a moment, then fell silent. Terribly sorry. Seeing that she didn't want to talk, Roca apologized helplessly. No, it's okay, it's just because of my parents. Bella still confided in him. Because her parents divorced, she had been living with her mother. But I didn't expect that my mother would have a second life and for the first time ever found a boyfriend and got married. And because the two of them were going on their honeymoon, her mother had no choice but to take her to her father's house and let her father take care of her. But because she hadn't seen her father for many years, the two were like strangers. This was also one of the reasons why she felt depressed. Thank you, I feel much better now. After she finished expressing her true feelings, Bella felt much better. Of course, I also wanted to vent my anger by racing just now. In fact, she has always loved cars. When she first came to her father's house, her father bought her a shabby old car, and she was happy for a long time. Not to mention sitting in this cool and handsome luxury sports car. I believe your father still loves you. Don't think too much. Face life positively. Maybe you will find that this world is more wonderful than you imagined. After hearing what he said, Bella 150 nodded and felt that it made some sense. By the way, I still don't know what you do, Roca. Bella said and looked at him like a curious baby. Roca shook his head with amusement. Actually, I'm an exorcist. Exorcist? Bella was stunned for a moment. This profession seemed to have never appeared in her life, and her curiosity suddenly aroused. It's just like you understand. I specialize in helping people deal with various supernatural phenomena, such as evil spirits, vampires, werewolves, aliens, etc. Evil spirits? Vampires? Werewolves? Aliens? Bella felt that these sounds, which usually only appeared in movies or novels, were unprecedented. This is too unbelievable, isn't it? Do these really exist? Bella asked with her eyes wide open and looking cute. Of course. Roca smiled and nodded. Just like vampires and werewolves, they are no different from ordinary people when they are not transforming. Once they transform, they have great power. It is not uncommon for vampires to live for hundreds of years. He was hinting at Bella by saying this. Since Bella has been in the town of Forks for some time, she must have seen the vampire Edward Cullen. We can't let Bella be taken away by this kid. Chapter 154. Generally speaking, no matter how handsome a vampire over 100 years old is, ordinary people would probably find it a bit disgusting to hear about him. Not to mention falling in love with him. As expected. Bella nodded thoughtfully after hearing this, so vampires and werewolves are bad guys. Not entirely, but it is very dangerous to ordinary people, especially since you have a special scent on you, Bella. Fragrance. Hearing this, Bella lowered her head a little embarrassedly and sniffed herself, but she didn't find any special smell on her body. Roca smiled and said, "It's body fragrance. This fragrance is purely natural. It's normal that you can't smell it. There is no doubt that Bella is special, and her scent will attract vampires. Even vampires who don't suck human blood can't resist the urge to suck blood. This shows how charming she is." Bella felt a little embarrassed after hearing this. She couldn't help blushing when she thought that Roca, who was sitting next to her, could smell her scent at any time. "So you have to be careful. There might be some vampires or something that will be attracted by your smell and approach you." The family Roca was referring to was the Cullen family to which Edward Cullen belonged. Although they claim to be vegetarians, they usually only drink animal blood to survive. But Bella's scent was too good. In the movie, some members of the Cullen family couldn't help but lose their minds, but that was still due to their emotions. After all, everyone can see that Edward Cullen likes Bella. If there wasn't this relationship, who knows if the Cullen family would suddenly take action. Even Edward Cullen couldn't help but take action. Love can drive a person crazy and suppress their instinct not to hurt the one they love. But they may also become crazy because they cannot get the love they want. Bella nodded thoughtfully after hearing his words. "By the way, where is your home? I'll take you back." Roca said this and turned the car around and headed towards the town of Forks. So fast, Bella pouted, obviously not having enough fun yet. "Your father will be worried. I'll wait for you at the same place tomorrow." Kindness. Hearing this, Bella nodded happily. After sending Bella home, Roca also greeted Bella's father, Sheriff Charlie, so they got to know each other. Sheriff Charlie was clearly not too impressed with the man his daughter brought back. After all, looking at the other party's sports car, you can tell that he is the son of a wealthy family, and he might even be a veteran in the world of women. "Dad, it was Roca who saved me when we were on the street." Seeing her father's stern face, Bella told him what happened on the street. After hearing his daughter say that Roca saved her, Sheriff Charlie's attitude changed 180 degrees. Compared to being cheated or something, this didn't happen. Therefore, the grace of saving life is naturally more important. "I'm sorry, Mr. Roca, please come in and sit down. I wonder what Mr. Roca does." "What? Still in college?" It can be seen that Mr. Roca's family is very wealthy. "What? You earned all this yourself?" After some understanding, Sheriff Charlie's perception of Roca changed dramatically. He found that the tall and handsome boy in front of him not only did not have the condescending attitude and tone of a rich kid or a rich second generation. On the contrary, he is very friendly and even speaks in a humorous and funny way. And all this is because he himself is a first-generation rich person, not a second-generation rich person. He has earned more money at such a young age than an ordinary person can earn in several lifetimes. Even Sheriff Charlie has to admire him. Plus, Roca saved his own daughter. His attitude became even better, and he even felt like a father-in-law looking at his son-in-law. "Bella, I heard you were in danger." Just at this moment, a man with slightly dark skin suddenly rushed in. "Blake." Sheriff Charlie looked at the neighbor's children with some displeasure. It was really rude to suddenly barge in and interrupt their conversation. But Jacob Black obviously didn't realize this. He quickly came to Bella and asked with concern, "I heard that there was an accident at the school gate? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, thanks to Roca for saving me." Bella shook her head and smiled at Roca. Jacob Blake looked at the handsome man who was taller than himself with a bit of hostility, and then uttered two words, "Thanks." Roca smiled and said, "What are you thanking me for?" "Thank you for saving Bella, of course." Jacob Black said as a matter of course. "Jacob, I'm not yours. Why are you thanking him? Besides, I've already thanked him." Bella said very dissatisfiedly. Although Bella treated Jacob Black as a friend during the time she moved here, she never had any other thoughts about him. She just treated him as a playmate who could talk. Now I am naturally unhappy to hear him say this. Sorry, Bella, I don't explain." Bella said and went back to her room angrily. Roca shrugged his shoulders when he saw this, then Uncle Charlie, "I'll leave first." "So soon? Can't you stay a little longer?" "No, I'll come visit you next time when I'm free." Roca smiled and shook his head. "Okay." Seeing that he was so determined, Sheriff Charlie did not try to persuade him to stay. When the two left, Jacob was the only one left in the living room, looking embarrassed and at a loss. He went to Bella's room and knocked on the door. But Bella didn't want to pay any attention to him. Jacob had no choice but to leave in shame after hitting a wall. But just as he left, he heard a voice. "Hey, little dog, come here." When Jacob heard the name Puppy, he subconsciously became angry. He hated being called a dog the most. Because he is a proud wolf. "Lee Hoseo, is that you?" When Jacob looked in the direction where the voice came from, he found that the person who called him Puppy was actually the man just now. He was already very dissatisfied with Roca, and now he was even more dissatisfied. He immediately strode over and raised his fist to teach him a lesson. However, just as he was about to swing his punch, the next second he felt dizzy and his body was thrown heavily to the ground. For a moment, he saw stars and couldn't tell the directions. "Hey, you still dare to show your teeth to me? Next, choose one of the 4 happiness options: dragon fruit, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, kite flying, and heartwarming dumplings." Woo woo woo. Jacob, who had just recovered, couldn't help but get angry when he heard the teasing, and threatening whimpers came out of his mouth. Then he laid on the ground with his hands and pounced on me like a wild beast. Chapter 155. "Well, since you don't want to choose, I'll have to choose for you. How about flying a kite? You must have never experienced the extraordinary feeling of being in the sky." After saying this, Roca grabbed Jacob by the scruff of the neck like a chicken. Then he took out a rope, put it around his neck, and threw it into the sky. Roca kept swinging the rope in his hand, using centrifugal force to fly Jacob in the sky like a kite, making it circle continuously. And left the town of Forks while flying a kite. After a while, they arrived in the woods outside the town. When he looked up, he found that Jacob's face had turned purple due to the rope and he was almost fainting. "That won't work." Roca was going to ask him some questions. So his hand trembled and he let Jacob go. Huff cough. Jacob, who was almost strangled to death, knelt on the ground and kept coughing, and looked at Roca with some fear. "The man in front of me is simply a devil." When he thought of the feeling of suffocation and fainting just now, he couldn't help but shiver. "Are you being honest now?" Roca squatted in front of him and laughed. "Who are you?" 270. Jacob took a few steps back. "Me? Anyway, I'm not a werewolf or a vampire." "You knew I was a werewolf." Jacob's pupils contracted. "Didn't you hear me calling you Puppy?" Roca shrugged and smiled. After hearing this, Jacob finally realized what the puppy meant. This guy knew his identity from the beginning. That's why he plays tricks on himself like that. When he thought of this, he felt a little angry. When had he, as a werewolf, ever been insulted like this? "What do you want?" Jacob also thought about transforming into a werewolf and fighting him. But when he thought of the terrifying feeling of suffocation just now, he gave up the idea. The man in front of him was so terrifying that he definitely could not defeat him. But never doubt the wolf's sense of danger. It's very simple. I ask questions and you answer them. Is that okay? Roca said with a smile. What do you want to know? Jacob couldn't help but feel relieved when he heard that it was just an answer to the question. 2 vampires and 2 other people came here some time ago, right? Do you know anything about them? Hearing this question, Jacob's pupils shrank suddenly. What is your relationship with them? As soon as Jacob finished speaking, he felt a slap on the back of his head. The huge force made him fall directly onto the grass. Are you asking the question, or am I asking the question? Roca raised his eyebrows and spoke unceremoniously. Jacob, who reacted suddenly, was a little frightened, because he didn't even see how the man in front of him made his move. For a moment, he felt somewhat relieved that he had not acted impulsively. Otherwise, my life or death might be in danger. They contacted us and asked us to join the Budapest Blood Clan. As werewolves, how could we possibly join the vampires? So we refused. So where did they go afterwards? Have no idea. Jacob shook his head. After the negotiation with the other party, he never saw the 2 seers and the 2 werewolves again. In fact, the Black family is very hostile to foreign werewolves and vampires. So after we parted on bad terms, we never saw each other again. Roca crossed his arms and frowned as he thought. He didn't expect that the vampires and werewolves sent by Selena had already met with the Black family here, but the 2 sides did not reach an agreement. So where will they go next? At this time, Jacob suddenly said, maybe they have met the vampires in town. I think you should know that they are a few people from the Cullen family. Roca's eyes lit up, this was indeed a clue. After all, in addition to the Black family and the werewolves, there are also the vampire Cullen family active near the town of Forks. Just ask them and you should be able to find out where the subordinates sent by Selena have gone. But what should we do with Jacob in front of us? You know, this guy has always been thinking about Bella. Even in the movie, after failing to get Bella, he set his sights on Bella's daughter. The wolf tribe has always had an innate spiritual brand. Once they meet a destined person with the brand, they will protect him/her for the rest of his/her life. And Jacob's spiritual imprint is Bella's daughter. Although the plot will definitely change. Roca would not let Bella continue to have an ambiguous relationship with Edward, but this was ultimately a hidden danger. At the same time, Jacob, who was lying on the ground, seemed to sense danger, and all the hair on his body stood up. He knew that if he didn't do something, he would definitely die here. So, he immediately fell to the ground and said, I am willing to offer my loyalty to you on behalf of the werewolves' kindness. Roca raised an eyebrow. I am the alpha of the Black werewolf family, so I have the right to submit to you on behalf of the clan. Jacob spoke again. The so-called alpha is the king of the wolf clan. As a king, he naturally has the right to represent the tribe in voting. I have to say this kid is really smart. What a pity. I don't need it. Roca raised his hand and slapped his head, causing red and white blood to scatter all over the ground. Jacob's headless body fell to the ground. This guy is a restless guy. In the movie, he forced Bella to choose him many times and even kissed Bella forcefully. Then he set his sights on Bella's daughter. He felt disgusted even if such people submitted to him. Staying around is also a disaster. As for surrendering on behalf of the werewolves? Even without Jacob, the alpha, the next alpha will be born. This world will not stop spinning without anyone. If you don't surrender, you will die. It's that simple here at Roca. After throwing a handful of hellfire to burn his body, he slowly left. No one could have imagined that the youngest alpha of the werewolves would die here, and his body would not be intact. The next day, Bella came to school early in the morning. However, what surprised her was that Edward Cullen, who had not been to class for the past few days, actually came to class in the biology class. And his attitude changed 180 degrees. Originally Bella thought that Edward hated her very much, but she didn't expect that today he not only greeted her with a smile, but also took the initiative to talk to her. This made Bella subconsciously compare him with Roca. Chapter 156. In terms of handsomeness, she felt that the two were different, the only thing in common was that they were both very handsome. Edward is a guy with skin that is a little too white, and he has a cold and handsome look. Roca is also very handsome, and taller. He doesn't have the feminine handsomeness of Edward, but more of a masculine handsomeness. And also a lot more friendly. Although she was indeed curious about Edward before, that curiosity cooled down after what happened in the past few days. All in all, Bella still felt more comfortable being with Roca. So Bella acted indifferent to Edward's approach. Just like ordinary classmates. Wait, I remember your eyes were brown, right? How come they suddenly turned golden? Bella suddenly discovered a blind spot. That is, Edward's eye color has changed. Compared with the previous brown, the gold in front of him is obviously more aggressive. The aggression even frightened her a little. Edward was caught off guard by the question and stammered, unable to explain clearly. Fortunately, the get out of class was over at this time, and Edward left the classroom without saying goodbye. Bella became even more suspicious upon seeing this. It's cold and his eyes that are different from those of ordinary people. Could it be? I finally made it to the afternoon school. Bella was extremely happy at the thought of meeting Roca and going for a ride with him soon. Hey Bella, do you want to go to the party this weekend? Just as Bella was leaving the school, a short boy came up to her and asked. Party? Bella was a little confused. Yes, classmates will go to the party together on weekends. It's fun. The boy looked at Bella's beautiful face with some obsession and invited her. No, I have other things to do this weekend. Bella shook her head and refused decisively. Bella, think about it carefully. This is also an opportunity to get closer to your classmates. Don't you want to get along well with everyone? The boy obviously didn't want to let go of Bella, the girl who had been certified as the school beauty as soon as she arrived, so he kept pestering her. Bella didn't want to pay attention to him and walked forward quickly. Seeing this, the boy immediately quickened his pace and stood in front of Bella. Hey, even if you don't agree, there's no need to be so cold. The boy said unhappily. Just when Bella didn't know what to do, a figure appeared and made her smile brightly. When the boy saw this smile, he immediately turned into a crazy fangirl. He thought Bella had changed her mind. That's right, we are all classmates, and getting together can help us build better relationships. Just when the boys were chattering, he was lifted up from behind by the collar. Who? The boy waved his limbs around in panic, like a toad that was being picked up. Who do you want to have a good relationship with? Roca brought the boy in front of him and looked down at the short and ugly boy. When the boys saw the tall and mighty figure, they were so frightened that they dared not speak. The students around were also shocked by the scene. The tall and handsome boy in front of them actually lifted up a 1.6 meter tall student with one hand. How much strength does this take? This is too manly. Some girls couldn't help but scream, hoping to attract his attention. Roca threw the boy to the ground and said condescendingly, "Next time I see you pestering Bella, you will know the consequences." When the boy heard this, his face was filled with horror. Although it was just an ordinary painting, for some reason, he couldn't stop his body from shaking. As if he would die if he disobeyed these words. Kindness. Roca keenly noticed that the boy's crotch was wet, and immediately turned his head away with a look of disgust. Bella, get in the car with me. Kindness. Bella nodded with a bright smile on her face. Then he took the initiative to put his hand in Roca's hand, and the two of them left the campus leisurely. All that was left were the exclamations of the students behind him, and the contempt and ridicule of the boy who was so scared that he peed his pants. And when the students followed to the school gate, I was immediately attracted by the red sports car. Get in the car, my princess. Roca reached out and opened the door for Bella. Thanks. Bella thanked him shyly, then happily sat in the passenger seat. Roca chuckled and glanced at the crowd. 10. Those who met his gaze subconsciously stepped away, leaving him a way to leave. Roca didn't waste any time. He flipped over and got into the driver's seat, then leaned over to help Bella fasten her seat belt. Don't forget your seat belts. Thanks. Feeling his hot masculine scent, Bella's pretty face turned slightly red and she looked even more shy. Woo woo woo. The next second, the red sports car rushed out like a phantom. It disappeared into the distance in just a moment. All that was left were the students' chattering and envious looks. The red sports car sped along the street and was out of the town in just a moment. The red sports car was now like a wild horse that had broken free from its reins, and at one point it reached a speed of 200 yards. Too fast. Such a fast speed made Bella's heart almost jump out. The surging feeling of passion only made her adrenaline surge and she experienced an unprecedented pleasure. After a while, Roca slowly slowed down and then stopped in front of a cool lake. Even until the car stopped, Bella was still immersed in the speed and passion, and her fair face was flushed with excitement. Are you okay? Can you get off the bus? Roca was a little amused and came to the passenger seat and stretched out his hand to her. Sure. Bella held his hand and stubbornly got out of the car, but unexpectedly her feet went weak as soon as she got out of the car and she almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, Roca reacted in time and hugged her soft and slender waist. Your body isn't as tough as your mouth. Roca teased with a smile. Humph, the group won't do that. Bella snorted in pretended anger, then stood up firmly. The two admired the calm lake in front of them. Bella also talked about the strange things that happened today. I always feel that Edward is very strange. He is extremely handsome, but he looks very cold. When I first entered school, he covered his nose. At that time, I thought there was something smelling on me. Moreover, his pupils were obviously brown, but later they turned golden. Do you think he could be? You guessed correctly. Hey? Is he really a vampire or a werewolf? Bella said in surprise. Chapter 157. To be precise, it's a vampire. In fact, there are several types of vampires. One type appeared in Paris. This type of vampire is not much different from ordinary people. Its body is warm, but it cannot see the sun. The vampires here are completely different. They are generally not afraid of sunlight. When the sunlight shines on their bodies, it even shines like diamonds. Isn't that beautiful? Bella thought somewhat naively. Roca smiled and shook his head, but they are born without body temperature, without breathing, and can only feed on blood. Bella couldn't help but wrinkled her nose when she heard this. Ah, isn't this different from death? Almost. Roca smiled and nodded. Will I be in danger? Bella suddenly became a little scared when she thought that Edward was a vampire and his family was also in the school. Vampires who have no body temperature, cannot breathe, and can only feed on blood are really terrifying. She didn't want to become a vampire. Of course there will be danger. Remember what I told you. Bella was a little embarrassed. Roca said too much and she didn't know what he was talking about. Roca smiled and said, you have a special body odor that always attracts the attention of vampires. You said that Edward kept covering his nose when he first saw you. I think that's the reason. In fact, Bella is not only naturally attracted to vampires, but is also immune to their superpowers. This may be a superpower in itself. Will I get bitten? Bella clenched her hands, her fair face full of worry. She was terrified at the thought of going to school tomorrow and being with vampires. There are two solutions. Roca crossed his arms and raised two fingers. What is it? Bella looked at him hopefully. The first solution is to transfer to another school and leave Forks. Those vampires haven't attacked you yet, so you may still have a chance to leave. Otherwise, they will definitely attack you when they can't stand your alluring scent anymore. But, I have nowhere to go. Bella looked like she was about to cry. She was only 17 years old and in high school. She had no ability to live independently. Where can she go if she leaves here? Besides, her father wouldn't agree. Roca really wanted to say that he had no place for her to live and that he could not support her studying at Jaoken. But there is no rush to say this. There is another way. What is the solution? Anxious Bella could only place her hope on this second method. It's simple, just make sure the vampires don't dare to attack you. Bella was stunned for a moment, then asked cautiously, then, what should we do? Get rid of those vampires, or drive them away, or you have the ability to defeat vampires yourself, these can solve your current predicament. Roca said it lightly, but Bella looked bitter when she heard it. How could she possibly drive away or kill those vampires? She is just an ordinary girl. And also give yourself the ability to defeat vampires to protect yourself? Isn't that the same as chasing away vampires? Where to get that kind of power? Stop looking so sad. Roca pulled her face, which seemed like it could squeeze water out of it, with a bit of amusement. You know what, it feels very good. If you don't have that kind of power, then I'll lend it to you. You'll lend it to me. Bella was about to open his hand when she was stunned for a moment, then she reacted and was surprised. Wait, can you handle those vampires? Bella immediately thought of the key issue again. Roca shrugged, maybe you can have more confidence in me. Okay, but how are you going to deal with them? How about I take you to see those vampires tonight? Roca suggested with a smile, crossing his arms. Okay, Bella agreed immediately. She was also very interested in vampires, otherwise she would not have paid special attention to Edward Cullen. Wait, my dad's side. Bella immediately looked bitter again. She felt that her father would definitely not let her walk around at night. It's okay, I'll convince Uncle Charlie. Roca patted his chest and indicated that he would take care of the matter. Bella smiled brightly when she heard this. Then she came to her senses and found that her world seemed to be changing because of Roca. What exactly are vampires like? The two drove back to the small town of Forks. Uncle, don't worry. I swear on my life that I will bring it back intact. Dad, Bella's home. Despite Roca's persuasion and Bella's coquetry, Sheriff Charlie still refused to give in. Unless you're married, there's no way I'd let Bella go out with you this late. Hearing this, Bella immediately covered her face shyly. She had never thought about such a thing before and didn't know what to say for a moment. Roca coughed awkwardly twice. Uncle Charlie, I really just took Bella out for some fun. No, you know her mother and I are both traditional and conservative people. We won't let you do anything before marriage. Besides, you haven't confirmed your relationship yet, right? Is it too late to confirm the relationship now? Roca looked helpless. He thought he could convince Sheriff Charlie, but he didn't expect the guy to be so old-fashioned. How about Uncle Charlie go with us? Can? Ah. Roca looked at Sheriff Charlie in astonishment. Did he hear it right? You actually agreed? He was just talking casually, why bring a light bulb? After a moment, Hey Roca, did you really agree to go with Dad? Bella looked at her father who was following behind her and whispered in his ear. I can't help it. Your father won't let me take you out alone. Roca also looked helpless. What should I do then? Bella was a little anxious. After all, they were going to look for vampires. How would her father react when he knew about this? It doesn't matter. It's good to let Uncle learn more. Roca didn't care. As Bella's father, Sheriff Charlie would be exposed to these things in the future anyway. It would be better to let him see it. Now. Chapter 158. All right. Bella sighed helplessly. The originally thrilling adventure has become a little boring now because of the addition of his father. And I have to keep an eye on my father's reaction after he sees a vampire. What if he can't accept it? It's a pity that Sheriff Charlie is determined to follow him, and there's no point saying anything. Roca's sports car only has 2 seats, but fortunately everyone can fit in if they squeeze in. There's no need to race anyway. Under Bella's guidance, the car soon stopped in front of the Cullen family's manor. Charlie couldn't help but frown when he saw this. Didn't you say you were going to play? Why are you here? Uncle, you don't have to ask so many questions. You will know it soon. Roca smiled mysteriously, then hugged Bella and jumped into Yard C of the Cullen family's manor. Charlie was filled with questions when he saw this scene. What did he see? Roca actually jumped away holding someone? Who has such a good jumping ability? Can one climb over a 3 or 4 meter high wall while holding a person in his arms? Is he still a human being? However, before Charlie could come to his senses, Roca jumped over again. Uncle, it's your turn next. Charlie didn't know what to say. The next second, Yinka grabbed his shoulders and brought him into the yard. After he stood firmly on his feet, Charlie couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He whispered, What are you going to do? I'm the sheriff of this small town. This is meant to remind the 2 people not to commit crimes. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to be the sheriff. Roca chuckled and said, Don't worry, Uncle, it's definitely not a crime, just don't be surprised by what you see later. Bella looked at her father with concern, wondering if he could accept the existence of vampires. Charlie still had a lot of questions he wanted to ask, but now was obviously not the time to ask these questions, so he didn't say much. He wanted to see what Roca was up to. Are we going over now? Bella whispered. Wait a minute, Roca said as he took out a bottle of perfume and sprayed some on Bella. What kind of perfume is this? It smells so good. Bella sniffed it and found the perfume filled with the scent of roses quite pleasant. She liked the smell immediately. Charlie on the side frowned as he watched this scene. What on earth was he trying to do? He suddenly sprayed perfume? As if he didn't exist? I'll give it to you because it smells good. Roca smiled and stuffed the perfume into her hand. Because the smell on your body is very special, I can only use perfume to cover it up a little. I hope it won't be discovered so early. Oh, Bella immediately understood what was going on when she heard it. This was the purpose of spraying perfume, but she still happily put the perfume away. This was the first gift she received from Roca, and she liked it very much. So she has to keep it well. Charlie was even more confused when he heard this. What on earth was it that required perfume to cover up the smell? Instead, he felt that the scent of the perfume might attract more attention. Let's go over there. Roca pointed to the villa in the manor. If they went past the flower bed, there was a high probability that they would not be discovered. You can also hide behind the flowers and peek at what's going on inside the villa. So a few people approached cautiously. Fortunately they were not discovered. It seemed that a party was going on in the living room of the villa. Handsome men and beautiful women were dancing to the melodious music. I know that one, it's Edward Cullen's sister Alice Cullen, and brother Emmett Cullen, sister Esme Cullen. Bella quickly recognized several of the people in the living room. When she looked towards the corner of the living room, she saw Edward Cullen sitting there drinking red wine silently. Wait, that doesn't look like red wine. Bella keenly noticed the bright red at the corner of Edward's mouth. Red wine doesn't have such a bright color, and it won't stain the corners of your mouth. Is it blood? Charlie, relying on his many years of experience as a sheriff, determined that it was definitely blood, not red wine. He then looked at Roca, as if to ask if this was the reason why they came here. A family in this town is a murderer and likes to eat human blood? This is really exciting. Keep watching. Roca raised the corners of his mouth slightly, without explaining anything. Under the gaze of the three people, the dance of the Cullen family in the villa continued. But after knowing that they drank some kind of blood, Bella and Charlie subconsciously frowned as they watched it all. It was at this time. Among them, the naughty little sister Esme Cullen almost fell down accidentally. The next second, Edward caught her like a ghost. Charlie and Bella couldn't help but blink when they saw this scene, thinking they were seeing things. But when he looked again, he found that Edward had indeed caught Esme Cullen. You have to know that the distance between the two was 3 or 4 meters, and there was a coffee table between them. This is obviously not something humans can do. It appeared. Bella couldn't help but exclaim. What kind of monsters are they? Charlie asked quietly in Roca's ear. Vampire. Roca just answered with 3 words and then stopped talking. Vampire. Charlie's face was filled with shock. In fact, as the sheriff, he naturally knew about the existence of vampires, and he was not as unacceptable as Bella had guessed. During his many years as a sheriff, he had encountered incomprehensible murders, and someone had told him that they were done by vampires. But he has never seen a vampire in person in all these years. I didn't expect to see so many vampires in person this time. How can this be? If these vampires go crazy, won't the whole town of Forks be in chaos? Thinking of this, he immediately drew the gun from his waist. Uncle, what are you doing? Roca was a little amused. Of course, we have to kill these vampires and prevent them from harming the town of Forks. Charlie said in a deep voice as if it was a matter of course. No, you guys leave here right now. Charlie was interrupted by Roca with a helpless look on his face before he could finish his words. Uncle, I think it's too late to leave now. What? Charlie was stunned for a moment, then he suddenly looked towards the villa. But they saw 2 vampires already in front of them. Chapter 159. It was obvious that his actions just now exposed his whereabouts and allowed the vampire to discover them. Thinking of this, Charlie looked grim and felt a little guilty. It was all his fault that he was too impulsive and attracted the attention of the vampire. Otherwise they still have a chance to leave safely. Now that they have been discovered by so many vampires, it is impossible for them to leave even if they want to. I'll buy time later. Roca, you take Bella and go. Charlie whispered with a determined look on his face. After saying that, he rushed towards the vampires with a heroic look on his face. Seeing this, Roca was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. Roca, please think of a solution. Bella shook his arm anxiously. The other side. Sheriff Charlie has already opened fire. Boom boom boom. However, ordinary firearms are completely useless against these extremely fast vampires. They can dodge bullets easily. Then you have to kiss me. Roca was not in a hurry, but instead happily made a request. It's already this time, why are you still thinking about this? Bella was a little angry, her face turned red with anger. At this time, this bad guy still wants to do this? Couldn't this request be made at some other time? No, I won't go unless you kiss me. Roca crossed his arms and looked helpless. Bella was almost crying with anger, and had no choice but to stand on tiptoe and kiss him on the face. Is this all right now? Sure. As soon as Roca finished speaking, he disappeared from the spot. When he appeared again, Rosalie Lillian Hale and Esme Cullen had been caught in his hands, like dead dogs. The 2 vampires who reacted covered their stomachs and groaned in pain, completely unaware of what was happening. Charlie, who was changing bullets, widened his eyes and looked at the scene in disbelief. Come on, let's go in and sit down. Roca chuckled back at Bella and Charlie. Who are you? Charlie suddenly pointed the gun at him and shouted. With such a fast speed, he can easily defeat vampires. Is he a vampire too? Roca couldn't help but roll his eyes at this. Please, Uncle Charlie, can you give me some trust? I'm not a vampire. And do you dare to bring Bella here without some skills? I believe in Roca, Dad, please stop messing around. Bella immediately stepped forward to help. Asterisk, 78. After hearing this, Charlie hesitated for a moment and then put down his gun. In fact, he didn't quite believe that Roca was a vampire. But apart from vampires, he couldn't think of anyone else who could have such speed and strength. And being accused by his daughter of fooling around was a huge blow to him. At the same time, inside the villa, I didn't expect someone to break into my house secretly. What happened? Esme Cullen frowned. Maybe it's a thief. Alice Cullen shrugged. Can't you see anything, Alice? Alice Cullen has the ability to predict the future, so Esme Cullen asked this question. However, Alice Cullen shook her head. I didn't see anything, but one of them looked like Sheriff Charlie. Sheriff Charlie. Hearing this name, even Edward was attracted. After all, the father of the girl he loves is Sheriff Charlie. Could it be that? When he thought of this, Edward couldn't help but want to go out and take a look. But just at this time, the door was opened. Then two figures were thrown in. Jasper. Rosalie. After seeing the person being thrown in, the Cullen family members were all shocked and angry. What was surprising was that the newcomer defeated Jasper and Rosalie so easily. What made them angry was that they didn't realize until they were attacked. If the other party had attacked by surprise, wouldn't they have been completely wiped out? Seeing her husband Jasper being beaten like this, Alice Cullen immediately bared her vampire fangs and rushed towards the men with a roar. Bella was startled when she saw this and quickly hid behind Roca. But the next second, Alice Cullen, who rushed over, was knocked to the ground by a slap. Damn it! Seeing her family members being knocked to the ground one after another, Esme Cullen, the adoptive mother, couldn't help but bare her vampire fangs and glared at them murderously. Bella, why are you here? Edward couldn't believe it. He didn't expect Bella to come here, and bring the man who came here today with her. In fact, he was always there when Bella was being pestered by boys at school during the day. Originally he was thinking about helping Bella solve her problem. But he didn't expect that Roca would get there first. And not only this time, he was also there during the last car accident. But he was also beaten to it by Roca. This made his anger towards Roca reach its peak, not to mention that Roca now attacked his family. For a moment he also showed his vampire fangs and stared at Gze fiercely. Hey, don't look so fierce, Bella is scared. Roca ignored the fierce looks from the men and even had the time to comfort Bella. Who are you? Esme Cullen, the adoptive mother, quickly calmed down. The opponent was able to knock Alice and the others to the ground in an instant, so his strength must be extraordinary. It is best not to get into conflict before you figure out the other party's intentions. Of course, the most important thing is that Carlisle Cullen, the head of the family, is not at home, so the only thing to do is to delay. I didn't expect your family to be vampires. Charlie had a gloomy expression and stared at the few people. So what if we're vampires? Our Cullens have never harmed ordinary people. Esme Cullen opened her mouth to retort. Since they became vampires, they have been feeding on the blood of wild beasts. They have never harmed ordinary people and even often helped them. So what's wrong with them? Really? Will it really not harm ordinary people? Roca sneered, then took Bella's finger and cut a wound on it. Look up. Bella frowned, but didn't say anything. She believed Roca. As the blood was exposed to the air, a strange fragrance made Edward swallow his saliva, and his eyes were fixed on the blood on Bella's fingers. Even Esme Cullen, the adoptive mother, couldn't help herself. The smell of the blood was so fragrant that it made them go crazy just by smelling it. Chapter 160. Jasper Hale and his youngest sister Rosalie Hale, who had just been lying on the ground groaning, could no longer control themselves and bared their blood-sucking fangs, roaring like wild beasts. Then he pounced on me madly as if he had lost his mind. Look at this! Roca stretched out his hands and grabbed the two men's necks, smiling and saying, "They said they wouldn't attack ordinary people, but you can't help it now." Kr. Adoptive mother Esme Cullen angrily denounced his shameless behavior, because the blood of the young girl in front of them had an incomparable attraction to them, the vampires, so everyone lost control. In other words, they would not lose control if they hadn't come into contact with this girl. Despicable. Roca raised his eyebrows. Do you dare to say that Edward has never had any intentions towards Bella? Hearing this, adoptive mother Esme Cullen couldn't help but look at Edward. As if what he said hit the nail on the head, Edward lowered his head with some guilt. Yes, he did have his eyes on Bella, but he was more attracted by her beauty. So he didn't tell his family about Bella's specialness. He felt very guilty about this. Kr. When his adoptive mother Esme Cullen saw him like this, she knew that Edward had come to her house because he was targeting her. I can guarantee that Edward and everyone in the Cullen family will stay away from her. Is that okay? Adoptive mother Esme Cullen tried to end the farce in this way. But this matter is not as simple as she imagined. I can give you two choices. The first is to move out of Foxtown and join the Budapest vampire clan. Wait, the Budapest vampires? Are you one of them? When adoptive mother Esmeralda suddenly heard the name of the Budapest vampires, she reacted immediately. Haha, it seems that you have already met. In fact, this is also the reason why I am looking for you. Roca said with a smile. But we have already rejected them. The Cullen family just wants to live their lives in anonymity. Adoptive mother Esmeralda said calmly. This is how the world is. You often don't get what you want. The same is true for life. In the end, the world is ruled by the strong, isn't it? Roca asked back with a smile. Hearing this, Esmeralda, Edward and other vampires all showed angry expressions. But after the anger comes a feeling of powerlessness. That's right, this world is ultimately controlled by the strong. And now Roca is the strong one. They are weak. They had no choice. I can't make the decision on this matter. I have to wait for Carlyle to come back. Carlyle? I should have thought of that. Charlie suddenly realized that he was actually very familiar with Dr. Carlyle Cullen. And now that Carlyle's family are all vampires, Carlyle is naturally no exception. It's okay, he'll be back soon. Roca was not in a hurry and pulled Bella to sit on the sofa nearby. Uncle, don't stand, sit down. Charlie looked at him and had no choice but to sit down. What happened today really refreshed his worldview. He found that there seemed to be unrest between vampires. And since Roca said he was not a vampire, then what was he? Why would you get involved in vampire affairs? Everyone waited for a moment. Carlyle Cullen, the patriarch of the Cullen family, finally came back from get off work. As a doctor, he was always the last one to get off work. But when he opened the door and saw Roca, Bella, Charlie, and others, he was a little confused for a moment, but then he realized that their identity as vampires had been exposed. What's going on? After seeing the injured Alice and others, Carlyle Cullen looked a little unhappy. It's very simple, Mr. Carlyle. Now the Cullen family is waiting for your decision. Roca said with a chuckle. Make a decision. Bioff, Carlyle looked at his wife Esme Cullen with doubt. He always trusted his wife, so he wanted to get the details from her. Esme Cullen smiled bitterly and then briefly recounted the incident. Are you from the Budapest blood clan? When Carlyle learned that Roca was sent by the Budapest vampires, his face suddenly turned unhappy. He had already rejected the invitation of the Budapest vampires before. Why is the other party still pestering me? Wait, you're not a vampire, are you? Of course not, but I am indeed here on behalf of the Budapest blood clan. Now you only have two choices. The first is to actively join the Budapest blood clan, and the second is to passively join the Budapest blood clan. You choose. After Roca finished speaking, he smiled and played with Bella's soft little hands. He seemed to care nothing about Carlyle's choice. Carlyle's face turned pale. He knew what had happened by now. He didn't expect that the people from the Budapest vampire clan, who had rejected them last time, would not give up and come back again this time. The Cullen family just wanted to live a good life in anonymity. They also never harm humans. Why is this happening? It's a pity that there are not so many whys in this world. There are always choices in life. Either you choose it actively or you choose it passively. Carlyle looked at his family members who were tortured beyond recognition, then looked at the man who looked calm and defenseless, and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. He just changed his name, but he never forgot his vampire blood. But he was soon dissuaded by the look of his wife, Esme Cullen. Esme Cullen shook her head at him, her eyes full of pleading. She was the only one who understood the horror of the man in front of her, whose speed was so fast that even she, a vampire, could not see clearly. Moreover, the other party looked so confident that it was obvious that they did not take them seriously at all. Therefore, even if they attack together, their chances of winning are less than 10%. The more likely possibility is that their Karen family will be wiped out. None of them can afford such a price. After understanding what Esme Cullen wanted to say to him, Carlyle Cullen finally made up his mind. The Cullen family is willing to join the Budapest blood clan. We only hope that the Budapest blood clan can treat the Cullen family well. The Cullen family does not want to participate in any fights. I am not responsible for this. Roca shrugged to indicate that what you wanted had nothing to do with him. Selina has the final say on how to arrange your affairs, and he will not interfere with Selina's decision. Chapter 161. Okay, now answer my question. You have already met the two vampires and two werewolves from the Budapest blood clan, right? Where did they go? From the beginning to the end, Roca's purpose in looking for the vampires was to ask where the vampires and werewolves sent by Selina had gone. Conquering the Cullen family was just a matter of convenience. But I have to say that the Cullen family is still very useful. For example, Alice Cullen, a vampire who can predict the future. This is a talent that all major forces are vying for. Once you have Alice Cullen, you will be able to predict the future and turn misfortune into fortune. Who wouldn't want such a person? I don't know. We haven't seen each other since we rejected their invitation. Carlisle Cullen shook his head. Or this answer? Roca raised his eyebrows. This was almost exactly the same answer as the werewolf Jacob. The vampires and werewolves sent by Selina were rejected after they came into contact with these two forces. And then it disappeared? So where else can they go? Carlisle Cullen hesitated, not knowing whether he should say something. Just tell me what you want to say. Since you have decided to join the Budapest blood clan, you are one of us. Roca patted his shoulder with a smile. Well, I think since Mr. Roca is looking for them, then they must be missing. And the people active in Foxtown are not only our Cullen family, but also Wolf Lambda. Roca waved his hand. There's no problem with the werewolves. I've already asked. Carlisle Cullen had no doubts after hearing this. Then in the end, only the foreign vampire forces will remain. Foreign vampire forces. Roca raised his eyebrows. He knew that there were 3 foreign vampires in the movie and they caused a lot of trouble for Bella. But they were just 3 vampires. Could they defeat the 2 vampires and 2 werewolves sent by Selina? Even if the vampires here have special superpowers, it's impossible that not a single one escaped, right? Yes, they are vampires who have recently arrived in the vicinity of the town of Forks. They must have escaped from a certain vampire tribe. Carlisle Cullen was not very clear about the origins of these vampires, and he had tried his best to prevent his family from coming into contact with foreign vampires. Roca narrowed his eyes and thought. Now there were no other clues, so he could only find the only clue and ask. Where are they? Carlisle Cullen shook his head. I'm not sure. I just know that they were active near the town of Forks. Send someone to keep an eye on the town of Forks, and tell me if you find any trace of those vampires. Yes. Carlisle Cullen bowed respectfully and accepted the order. Roca nodded with satisfaction, then took out his phone and called Selina, telling her about the Cullen family's situation. That's great. As far as I know, most of the vampires in the Cullen family have special superpowers. Now the Budapest blood clan will become even stronger. Selina was very happy when she got the news. You know, once the Cullen family is conquered, the benefits will not only be more than just having more vampires with special abilities. It can also study the vampire bloodline of the Cullen family, and more importantly, whether it can be integrated into Selina's vampire ancestor bloodline. After all, Selina's vampire blood is a perfect fusion of werewolf blood. She is not afraid of sunlight or silver, but has the advantages of both vampires and werewolves. If only I could integrate the vampire blood of the Cullen family. Can Serena also have special superpowers? This is a very bold attempt. Well, then I'll leave the Cullens' affairs to you. I still have to follow up on the matter of those missing vampires you sent over. No problem, I'll send someone else to contact the Cullen family. After talking to Selina, Roca hung up the phone. He then gave Selina's contact information to Carlisle Cullen and let him make the contact himself. As for how Selina would arrange the Cullen family, he didn't have to worry about it. After everything is resolved, Roca took Charlie and Bella away from the Cullen family villa. However, neither of them spoke along the way, as if they had not yet recovered from what had happened before. After all, Roca, who had just dealt with the Cullen family, seemed like a different person. He became extremely domineering and would not tolerate any opposition from anyone. This was completely different from the Roca they knew. Request flowers 0 all the way to Bella's house. See you tomorrow. Roca smiled and waved goodbye to Bella. Bella bit her lip lightly, as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. Want to know something about me? We'll be at the same place tomorrow. Roca smiled and leaned over to speak in her ear, then licked her earlobe. Bella shuddered for a moment, and her pretty face turned red involuntarily. She looked at the naughty Roca in front of her, and the familiar feeling seemed to return. Tomorrow is the weekend, come early. Bella winked playfully after saying this, and then skipped into the house. Roca chuckled and then drove away. 0 the next day. Still the old location. Bella dressed up early in the morning and left home under the unfriendly gaze of her father Charlie. Charlie sighed helplessly when he saw this. What happened last night made him not want his daughter to get close to Roca. Although Roca said he was not a vampire. But it can easily scare vampires, and has an unclear relationship with vampires. His world is too complicated. Can his daughter be happy? But now he was powerless to stop it. The other side. It's still the school gate. Diddy. Just as Bella was looking around, a red sports car did a tailspin and stopped beside her. Roca took off his sunglasses and waved to her. Get in the car. Bella showed a bright smile on her face, and then sat in the passenger seat skillfully. Roca fastened her seatbelt as usual, then stepped on the accelerator and sped away. Where are you going today? Bella asked curiously. Remember the vampire I asked the Cullens to find yesterday? Hey? Did you find them so quickly? Bella was a little surprised. That's right. Roca nodded with a smile. So do you want to go and take a look together? Of course. Bella is still very interested in vampires, or perhaps she is interested in the unknown world. In short, she felt that no matter what she did with Roca, it would be good. Chapter 162. Roca found it very funny to see her so excited. In fact, he was worried that Bella was not interested in these things. Obviously his worries were unnecessary. Bella was still very interested in his world. By the way, I found the exorcism agency you mentioned on the internet. Have you really been dealing with ghosts and monsters? Bella asked about this matter with great interest. Roca smiled and nodded. Of course, which ones do you want to know? I want to know everything about you. Bella felt a little embarrassed as soon as she finished speaking. The words sounded too ambiguous. Want to know my whole story? Then I have to start from the first time I faced the undead killer Jason. A red sports car is driving slowly on the road. Roca briefly recounted his first battle with Jason 4900. Bella became even more curious when she learned that he was just an ordinary person at that time. When talking about some thrilling parts, Bella's mind was also affected and she became nervous. Crunch! The vehicle stopped after a moment. That's how I solved the undead killer Jason. And then? Then, there's the masked killer, the axe maniac, the killer Miles, the nightmare killer Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street. Tell me quickly, Bella urged with great interest. She really liked the thrilling story of the killer Jason, and she was also looking forward to Roca's next story. But Roca shrugged with amusement. We're already here. Ah! Bella realized then that the car had stopped. She was so engrossed in listening that she was completely unaware of what was happening around her. All right. Bella sounded rather regretful. I'll tell you the story later. Roca pinched her nose with amusement. Bella wrinkled her nose and angrily opened his hand, but soon burst out laughing. That's a deal. You must tell me more stories about your adventures later. Certainly. Roca smiled and nodded, then looked towards the bar nearby. That's right, according to the Cullen family's intelligence, the 3 foreign vampires are in the bar. He didn't waste any time and pulled Bella into the bar. Perhaps because it was morning, the bar wasn't very lively. Only a few people were drinking. Roca aimed at the 3 vampires and walked towards them. At this time, the 3 vampires, 2 men and 1 woman, were chatting about something, and their eyes were occasionally looking at the high school boys and girls on the other side. It was obvious that they had set their eyes on the young couple. If nothing unexpected happens, they will become the prey of 3 vampires. Unlike the Cullens, these 3 exiled vampires are not vegetarians. They often suck human blood. However, at this moment, an irresistible smell came over. The 3 vampires suddenly turned their heads to look where the fragrance came from. James, great! There are even more delicious desserts over here. It was just sheer luck that they came through. I can't help it anymore. It smells so good. I really want to taste her blood and see how delicious it is. The moment they saw Bella, James and the other 2 almost drooled. It was almost an instinctive desire. Their bodies kept telling them that they must taste the girl's blood. Bella was a little scared when she saw their eyes staring at prey, so she immediately grabbed Roca's clothes and hid behind him. Roca grabbed her fair and tender little hand with some amusement and said, "Come out with me, all of you." Ah! James and the other 2 who were about to take action were stunned when they heard this. Just now they were a little concerned about the large number of people in the bar, but they didn't expect that the 2 humans in front of them would actually take the initiative to invite them out. Is there such a good thing? Ha ha ha, great, let's talk outside. James, the leader, laughed loudly, wishing that the few people would go out and chat so that no one would disturb them from enjoying the delicious blood. The black vampire Laurent almost couldn't help howling with excitement. He couldn't wait to come to Bella and sniff the sweet smell in the air, but he didn't rush to take action. Instead, he looked at Bella as if she were his prey. It was also a good thing that he didn't do anything. Otherwise he would be dead now. After a moment, several people came to an empty alley together. Hey James, isn't this a bit too obvious? The female vampire Victoria spoke. This place is not far from the roadside. If you call for help, someone will definitely hear you. I can't wait any longer. Before James could say anything, the black vampire Laurent couldn't wait to reach out and grab Bella. The next second, his palm was grabbed by Roca. Roca gave him a bright smile and then clenched his fist tightly. Click, 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 a shrill scream echoed throughout the alley. You're right. Whether it's calling for help or screaming here, it will attract unnecessary onlookers, so let's hurry up. Roca said with a smile, and the flame of hell in his hand burst out and suddenly wrapped the whole body of the black vampire Laurent. Just now it was just the pain of my palms being crushed into pulp, but now it is the pain of my soul being burned. The double pain of mind and body left Laurent without the strength to even scream. He was slowly burned into charcoal and finally turned into ashes. See this scene? James and his girlfriend Victoria's pupils suddenly shrank, and a creepy feeling made them tremble all over. What is this? Laurent died just like that? Not even ashes left? Just thinking about this made the two of them terrified. Who are you? Who? Ha, Roca chuckled, you should have come into contact with the Budapest vampires, right? Tell me, where did they go? You are from the Budapest blood clan. Hearing this, James and Victoria reacted immediately. Kindness. Roca raised his eyebrows. James and Victoria were trembling with love and said quickly, we don't know either. At the beginning, the two vampires and the two werewolves found us and asked us to join the Budapest blood clan, but we disagreed, and then the two sides fought. Then what? Then we fled. James felt a little ashamed after he said this. After all, running away is not a glorious thing. Chapter 163. So you don't know where they went? Roca raised his eyebrows and his eyes became dangerous. Yes. After James finished speaking, he looked at his expression carefully. Seeing his unfriendly eyes, he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. No, I know where they went. At this time, the blonde vampire Victoria spoke hurriedly. Explain. Roca crossed his arms and looked a little impatient. Seeing this, Victoria hurriedly said, I happened to see them clashing with the Vertu family before. If the person you are looking for is missing, I think it must be related to the Vertu family. The Volture family. Roca narrowed his eyes. He remembered this vampire family, which had been active in the city of Volterra in Florence, Italy. It was one of the 10 royal groups among the vampire families. And they made laws for vampires, which restrained and managed vampires to a certain extent and prevented them from causing chaos. Overall, it is a vampire family with a long history. Its leaders are 3 ancient vampires, Ero, Caius, and Marcus. In the movie, the desire to obtain Alice Cullen, who has the ability to predict the future, leads to a war against the 18 clans of the Cullen family. This shows that the Volture family is a very ambitious vampire family. You guys go. Roca waved to James and Victoria, signaling them to leave quickly. Now that we know the ultimate obstacle is the Vertu family, the next thing will be easy. However, Selina's help is still needed to completely eliminate the Volture family. Of course, he alone is enough to deal with the Volture family. But the subsequent control of the Vertu family will need to be done by Selina. As long as the Vertu family is annexed, the Budapest blood clan will become more powerful than ever before. This should meet Serena's expectations. You really let us go? James looked at him in disbelief. Why? Don't you want to leave? Roca narrowed his eyes and smiled. TT. James said this and pulled Victoria aside and ran away, crawling. But did Roca really let them go? Just when James and Victoria were running into the jungle to escape, a sudden flame instantly enveloped them. Then, with a burst of shrill screams, the two of them completely turned into ashes and disappeared. In the original book, these two people caused Bella a lot of trouble and kept spying on her. If we let them go, they will inevitably do something bad. So Roca naturally wouldn't really let these two people go, but he just didn't want to kill too many people in front of Bella. Even though it wasn't a human but a vampire. Roca, where are we going next? After getting in the car, Bella asked curiously, are we going to find the Volto family? Roca smiled and shook his head, no, I'm not going anywhere from now on. I'll just play with you. Really? Bella was delighted after hearing this. Of course. Roca smiled and nodded. There was no rush to deal with the Virtue family, and Selena had to prepare well. When the time comes, we can just wipe out the Volto family in one fell swoop. There is absolutely no need to rush. Besides, it's not appropriate to take Bella along for such an event. Why don't we go to the river and play? I want to hear your stories. Bella suggested excitedly. Okay. Roca didn't expect Bella's request to be like this. He thought Bella would ask to play in the town of Forks. But it doesn't matter. A few days later, the people sent by Selena finally arrived in the town of Fox. Roca didn't waste any time. After arranging for the Cullen family to go to Paris, he immediately took people to the city of Volterra in Florence, Italy. The Volturi family has great power in the city of Volterra in Florence, and is like the local tyrant. But unfortunately, they met Roca. According to Roca's consistent principles, they had only one choice, surrender or die. It's a pity that the Volturi family, who have been domineering for thousands of years, did not take him seriously. Thus the Volturi were destroyed. In just half a day, the Volturi family, which had been passed down for thousands of years, was swallowed up by the Budapest vampires. As for how to deal with it later, it depends on Selena. With the permission of his father-in-law Charlie, Roca transferred Bella to a high school in New York and began to live a shameless life. But before that, I have to take Bella, Allison, and Maria to meet them. Fortunately, Roca is also familiar with this aspect. The conflicts and unhappiness among the women were easily resolved. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission Twilight City. Rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host for increasing his Kryptonian bloodline by 2%. Oh! It actually increased by 2%. Roca, who had some free time, checked the system prompts. He didn't expect that this system task would actually reward a 2% increase in bloodline. This is the first time. He also didn't feel that this task was difficult. But it doesn't matter. Roca would not complain if the system gave him too little, and he would not complain if the system gave him too much. However, he didn't have time to rest for a few days. The sudden urgent task woke Roca up from his peaceful life. That evening, Roca was holding Maria with his left hand and Bella with his right hand, watching TV and saying sweet words to them. Unexpectedly, Allison, who had just finished taking a shower, ran out wrapped in a white bath towel. Seeing this, Roca couldn't help but whistle, "Hey, don't be so anxious, there's still a lot of time in the evening." Allison couldn't help but roll her eyes after hearing this. She handed over the phone and said, "It's a call from the sheriff of the town of Jason, Colorado, USA. He said there's an urgent commission." "Oh? So late?" Roca reluctantly pulled his arms around Maria and Bella and took the phone. He was a little too lazy to move so late. Isn't it nice to roll in bed with your sweet-smelling wife? However, his professional ethics as an exorcist made him answer the phone. "Hello, I'm Roca, the head of the exorcist agency. What's the emergency request? If it's really urgent, our agency can get there within half an hour, but you have to pay an additional commission." "Too slow." "Ah." Hearing the anxious voice coming from the other end of the phone, Roca couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "I mean, it's too slow, can it be faster?" "Commissions are not a problem, as long as you can save the town, even a town worth $1 million can be built." Hearing this, Roca became a little curious. "Of course you can, but are you in such a hurry? What happened?" "Monsters, many monsters have occupied the town. Now the town is full of such monsters. They seek to survive in human bodies and continue to breed more monster larvae." "Monster? Please explain clearly what kind of monster it is." At this time, Roca's expression became more serious. "A monster that could occupy a small town must be no simple creature. If not handled properly, it could be like an alien bug that could tear humans apart, threatening to destroy the entire Earth." Chapter 164. Those monsters look very scary. They have bodies similar to those of velociraptors, and their blood is extremely corrosive. It's the size of a velociraptor, its blood is corrosive, and it can parasitize the human body and give birth to its young. Combining the other party's description, Roca suddenly realized, isn't this an alien? Plus, the target location is in Colorado. The town of Jason. The results are obvious. Ding! The system has updated the task Alien vs Predator 2, please host to solve all the alien. It is indeed this. Wait, Mr. Sheriff, didn't you notify the nearby army? Why did you come to our exorcism office? Roca, remember in the movie, didn't the military drop a nuclear bomb? It seems that the town has been occupied by aliens. Wouldn't it be like eating a nuclear bomb if he went there now? We have already notified the military, but their first priority was not to rescue the residents of the town, but to control the scope of the disaster and prevent it from spreading. Because the situation is now out of control, the military decided to drop a nuclear bomb, but after discussion, the military decided to give us 2 hours. Oh! Roca was a little surprised. In fact, the situation is not complicated. The military is preparing to drop a nuclear bomb to destroy the town of Jason, just like in the movie, in order to eliminate all aliens. But somehow, Sheriff Eddie managed to gain 2 hours by negotiating with the military colonel. As long as they can escape or kill all the aliens within 2 hours, they can survive. Otherwise, he will disappear in the nuclear bomb along with the alien. 2 hours. Roca touched it. There's enough time. I'll take over Sheriff Eddie's mission. Great, most of us who are still alive are now gathered in the hospital in the town of Jason, but those monsters have already known about our existence. I think they will come to the hospital soon, so, don't worry, I will get there as quickly as possible, so don't worry. Roca hung up the phone without further ado. Want to go out? Bella looked at him reluctantly. Roca smiled and kissed her fair face, don't worry, I will rescue you soon, just wait for me in the room. Kindness. Bella and Maria nodded obediently. This made Allison roll her eyes. He said the same thing last time and came back very late. But everyone still supported him to go. After all, those are the residents of the entire town. If they don't go, all the residents will die in the nuclear explosion. Although Allison and the others are not saints, they don't want to see so many people die. Of course, Roca's purpose of this trip was not to save the town. He remembered that an alien spaceship from the Predator had crashed in the town of Jason. There are also various high-tech weapons of the Terminator. These things are more valuable than simple commissions. So it's worth Roca's special trip. Okay, I'm leaving now. Roca didn't waste any time. He patted Allison's butt and flew out from the French window. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the night sky. Maria and Bella were left silently praying that everything would go well. At the same time, in the hospital in the small town of Jason, a large number of injured townspeople were sent to the hospital, blocking the flow of people. Sheriff Eddie, what should we do next? The timid female police officer nearby asked in fear. She knew that the monsters would not let the people here go, and if they didn't find a solution, everyone would be killed by the monsters sooner or later. Don't worry, someone has come to rescue us. Sheriff Eddie was also extremely anxious at this time, and his eyes looked towards the distance of the town from time to time. In fact, it was a friend named Kate who gave him an idea at the critical moment, so he contacted the exorcist agency. The only thing that made him doubtful was whether this so-called exorcist agency could really help the residents of the town. You know, even the military couldn't control the situation in the town and chose to drop a nuclear bomb. Can this so-called exorcist agency really work? But now he has no other choice. The military will launch a nuclear bomb in 2 hours and life or death will be left to fate. And he couldn't tell the public that the nuclear bomb was about to explode. Otherwise things will only get worse. Hurry, everyone, go in. The rain was getting heavier, and Sheriff Eddie felt more and more that something was wrong. The screams in the distance seemed to be getting closer. So he shouted loudly for everyone to go to the hospital quickly. No one dared to neglect. They saw that monster with their own eyes. However, the opposite S*X comes like a cat smelling fish, they come when they smell the fishy smell. The alien suddenly pounced out of the darkness, and those who ran slowly were caught by the alien. The aliens did not kill these defenseless humans, but captured them and used them as petri dishes for breeding alien larvae. Boom boom boom. Seeing this, Sheriff Eddie pulled out his pistol and shot wildly at the alien. It's a pity that ordinary bullets don't have much effect on these aliens. Moreover, they move very fast, and if they jump to the side, it will be difficult for the pistol to kill them. I watched as more than a dozen monsters surrounded me in the darkness. For a moment, Sheriff Eddie's face was filled with fear and despair. The next moment, an alien in the front pounced towards him. Sheriff Eddie quickly pulled the trigger, but suddenly found that the pistol was out of bullets. He smiled bitterly and accepted the fact calmly. But the next second a figure fell from the sky. A hole was instantly smashed into the ground, and the area over 10 meters in radius formed a spider web shape. Sheriff Eddie and several police officers beside him were all knocked down by the invisible impact and looked at it all in a daze. When they came to their senses, they were shocked to find that there was an extra person in the pit. It seems I arrived just in time, Sheriff Eddie. Roca jumped out of the pit, then turned back and looked at Sheriff Eddie with a smile. Are you from the Exorcist Agency? Sheriff Eddie stared with eyes wide open, looking in disbelief at the man in front of him who was wearing a white shirt and floral shorts that revealed his muscular body. In fact, he called the Exorcist Agency just as a last resort. I never thought that the other party would be able to rescue me so quickly. After all, the two places are hundreds of kilometers apart. What he didn't expect was that a miracle seemed to happen. Someone actually came to save them. Chapter 165. I'm Roca, the head of the Exorcism Agency. Roca said as he held out his hand to him. However, Sheriff Eddie widened his eyes and warned loudly, be careful. Kindness. Roca could sense a gust of evil wind coming from behind him, and immediately he took out the Golden Desert Eagle and pulled the trigger. Bump. The power of the Golden Desert Eagle accurately blew up its head, and green brain matter spurted out, making a corrosive sound as it fell to the ground. Ordinary pistols are no match for these ordinary aliens. But the Golden Desert Eagle can. Roca remained calm and kept pulling the triggers of his two guns with both hands. Boom boom boom. More than 10 aliens were killed in just an instant. Amazing. The police officers behind Sheriff Eddie were all stunned. They had spent so much effort to deal with a terrifying alien, but it turned out to be so fragile? Was it all solved at once? How is this possible? However, the facts are before us. Roca only used 2 guns to unexpectedly eliminate more than 10 ordinary aliens. And there are more aliens in the darkness. But these aliens seemed to know how powerful he was, so they all retreated quietly. 100 Are you all right? After seeing the aliens retreating, Roca turned around and walked up to the few people and asked with concern. No, nothing. Sheriff Eddie swallowed hard before answering, but soon he gave a bitter smile. Mr. Roca, you better leave here. Well? Do you want to cancel the commission? Roca raised his eyebrows with an unfriendly look. No, there is no time. I don't want to implicate more innocent people. Sheriff Eddie smiled bitterly and shook his head. There are less than 2 hours left before the nuclear bomb is dropped. How can we eliminate the countless monsters in the town in such a short time? This is simply impossible to accomplish. It was because I was too stupid to put my hopes on the Exorcist Agency. Roca almost laughed. Could it be that this guy just saw that he only used a pistol to deal with the aliens, so he thought he couldn't handle the aliens in the entire town? Yes, it is indeed difficult to deal with all the aliens in the town with guns alone. But he has more than just guns. Okay, Sheriff Eddie, I'll take care of those monsters. You, just need to pay the commission on time afterwards, and don't worry about anything else. 78. Seeing how confident he was, Sheriff Eddie felt a little more hopeful. Okay, no time for small talk, the aliens have entered the hospital. Roca looked towards the hospital and found that many aliens had sneaked into the hospital through the walls. If nothing is done, there will probably be heavy casualties in the hospital. These people can be said to be his employers. After all, Sheriff Eddie alone cannot pay the commission of $1 million. Everyone in the town needs to pay it together. So save as many as you can. Since there is a commission, let him become a righteous Superman. Sheriff Eddie's face changed drastically when he heard his words. He also knew how many casualties would be caused once those monsters entered the hospital. However, just when he was about to say something, he found that Roca in front of him had disappeared at some point. Sheriff, who is that man? The female police officer asked in shock. He may be the only one who can save this town. Sheriff Eddie didn't waste any time after he finished speaking. He immediately went into the hospital and arranged for everyone to gather together to avoid being attacked by the monster. At the same time, in a delivery room, several pregnant women and nurses were unaware of the movement outside the hospital. "It's late, pregnant mothers should rest." The nurse asked the pregnant women to rest early and then left the delivery room. But I met love around the corner. An alien was hanging upside down in the corridor and came face to face with her. The sudden appearance of the terrifying monster also frightened the nurse, and she started screaming. However, the next second, the alien's head was cut off, separated from the neck smoothly. "Keep your voice down, the noise will attract more monsters." Roca couldn't help but scratch his ear and reminded him. The nurse then realized that there was a person beside her, and she also realized that it was this person who saved her. But she still doesn't know what happened. "What is this terrifying looking monster in front of me? What is going on here? Who are you?" the nurse asked subconsciously in a low voice. "There's no time to explain. You'd better go in and stay with those pregnant women. Don't wander around." As Roca spoke, his eyes were already looking at the aliens on the other side. From what he could see, the entire hospital was invaded by dozens of aliens. And there is also an iron-blooded alien queen that parasitizes the predator Scar in the movie. Pregnant women in the delivery room are the best place for alien breeding. So the iron-blooded alien queen was targeting these pregnant women. One pregnant woman could hatch at least 5 or 6 ordinary aliens. Hey! When Roca was planning to wait and see and get rid of the iron-blooded alien queen, he found that the iron-blooded alien queen turned around and ran away. What's going on? Could it be that the iron-blooded alien queen sensed the danger? Roca frowned and did not chase after him. The most important thing now was to deal with the ordinary aliens in the hospital. There are too many of these ordinary aliens. If the problem is not resolved soon, I'm afraid few people in the hospital will survive. Thinking of this, he disappeared from the spot in a flash. The nurse was about to say something when she saw the person disappear. She rubbed her eyes and thought she had seen it wrong. After thinking about it, she obediently went back to the delivery room. At least it's safe here for now. At the same time, Roca moved around the hospital at supersonic speed, and all the aliens he passed by were burned to ashes by the flames of hell. The blood of these aliens is extremely corrosive and can only be best dealt with by the flames of hell. Otherwise, the entire hospital will be corroded and riddled with holes. At the same time, he also imprisoned several aliens in the monster containment device as collection. After doing all this, only a few minutes passed. Roca found Sheriff Eddie again. "Mr. Roca, thank you so much." Sheriff Eddie was immediately grateful when he saw him. He knew that there were many aliens in the hospital, but these aliens were suddenly burned to death by a flame. He knew without thinking that it must have been Roca who did it. This kind of cleaning efficiency might really be able to eliminate all the aliens in the town. Chapter 166. The hospital is safe for now, and I don't think those cowardly monsters will come here for a while. Roca said in a calm voice. The hunter alien that seemed extremely terrifying to ordinary people was like a docile kitten to him. The supervision makes them know where to hide, making it very easy to deal with them. But there are still many monsters in this town, and no one knows how many there are. Sheriff Eddie was still a little worried. He had personally witnessed the scene of the monster cubs parasitizing the human body and then breaking out of the body. They can be hatched in such a short time, and no one knows how many monsters there are in the town at this moment. You just need to stay here. Don't accept escapees at will. They might be infected with the parasite. After giving a reminder, Roca disappeared from the spot. There is only 1.5 hours left. Next he had to clear out all the aliens in the town. Of course, the most important one was the iron-blooded queen. As long as the iron-blooded alien queen is there, new aliens will continue to be born. However, when he looked at the iron-blooded alien queen, he suddenly discovered that there was someone fighting with the iron-blooded alien queen at this moment. It's the predator. Roca immediately went to a tall building nearby and watched the fight between the two sides with great interest. Predator vs Iron Alien Queen. This is truly a fateful duel. In fact, the Iron Warrior Lone Wolf had fought with the Iron Alien Queen many times in the town, and as a result, his high-tech equipment shoulder cannon was destroyed. At this time, he could only pick up a sharp metal whip, and with a wave of his hand, he used the metal whip to entangle an ordinary alien. Then pull hard. The sharp whip instantly cut the alien into pieces. The iron-blooded alien queen, who has inherited the genes of the predator, is very smart. Seeing that the iron-blooded warrior Lone Wolf had such a sharp weapon in his hand, he did not dare to step forward in person. Instead, he ordered a steady stream of ordinary aliens to come forward and consume its strength. It took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. After the Lone Wolf killed an alien with a whip, he immediately rolled over without thinking to avoid the sneak attack from the iron-blooded alien queen behind him and then swung out the whip to wrap around the iron-blooded alien's tail. But the strength of the iron-blooded alien was beyond his expectations, and the whip in his hand was thrown away by it. Now the Lone Wolf no longer has the sharpest weapon in his hand. However, the Lone Wolf fought more and more fiercely, and he roared as if to intimidate the opponent. Unexpectedly, the iron-blooded alien queen, who had the iron-blooded warrior's genes, roared like him and assumed the iron-blooded warrior's unique fighting posture. Seeing this, Lone Wolf took out his retractable spear. The battle between the two sides began again. The Lone Wolf stabbed with the spear, but was dodged. He swept out a second time, but was also dodged. It's no wonder that although the iron-blooded alien queen is huge in size, she is very flexible. The Lone Wolf turned around and stabbed with his spear. This time the iron-blooded alien failed to dodge and was stabbed in the abdomen. The iron-blooded alien queen roared in pain, then slapped the Lone Wolf. Seeing this, the Lone Wolf immediately threw the spear in his hand. However, the iron-blooded alien queen easily dodged it, and then it suddenly rushed forward. The Lone Wolf had no time to dodge and was hit into the gas pipe on the roof. Immediately afterwards, the iron-blooded alien queen head-butted again, but the Lone Wolf fought back and punched the iron-blooded alien queen on the head. The battle between the two sides was extremely fierce. At this time, Lone Wolf actually took off his heavy armor and mask. This means that he is about to fight to the death. Roar! The Lone Wolf roared again, and this time he showed the momentum of burning his boats. Either you die or I die. The iron-blooded alien queen also roared. With the iron-blooded warrior gene, she understood Lone Wolf's thoughts very well. The next moment the two sides collided again. Wonderful! It's really wonderful! Roca, who was watching this scene from a tall building in the distance, couldn't help but applaud them and recorded the scene with his mobile phone. I plan to go back and show it to Bella and the others. Just treat it as the blockbuster of the year. At the same time, the battle between the iron-blooded alien queen and the Lone Wolf became increasingly brutal. In the contest of strength, the iron-blooded alien queen is naturally more powerful than the Lone Wolf. In just one round, the Lone Wolf was knocked over by the iron-blooded alien queen's brute force, causing his arm to bleed. But that's not all. The iron-blooded alien queen grabbed Lone Wolf and pressed him against the pipe, piercing his shoulder with her tongue. Rude. The Lone Wolf fought back, throwing the iron-blooded alien queen against the pipe with an over-the-shoulder throw. But it did not cause much harm to it. Whether in terms of strength or defense, the iron-blooded alien queen is much stronger. The two sides entangled again. After the iron-blooded alien queen pressed Lone Wolf against the pipe, she used her tongue to attack his head repeatedly, but Lone Wolf dodged by turning his head. And the Lone Wolf took the opportunity to grab the tongue of the iron-blooded alien queen with his hand, and then suddenly exerted force and pulled the tongue out of her mouth. This time, the iron-blooded alien queen was severely injured, and green blood kept spurting out of her mouth. Perhaps because its genes were fused with the predator's genes, its blood lost its strong corrosiveness. So even though the blood sprayed on the Lone Wolf, it did not cause any injuries to him. However, just as Lone Wolf pulled out his wrist knife and prepared to hit the iron-blooded alien queen on the head, the iron-blooded alien queen's tail suddenly pierced directly into his chest. Pierce its body and lift it up. Hey! This reversal surprised Roca a little. He didn't expect that the iron-blooded alien queen had learned her lesson. After this attack, the Lone Wolf still wanted to resist, but he was completely powerless. Roar! The iron-blooded alien queen's victory made it roar towards the sky. The Lone Wolf lying on the ground was unwilling to accept the defeat. He did not expect that he would be defeated by the iron-blooded alien queen in the end. This was definitely the biggest shame in his life. Just when he was about to close his eyes unwillingly, he saw a figure appear beside the iron-blooded alien queen. The next second, the iron-blooded alien queen's head suddenly exploded. Tisk, I thought I wouldn't have to do anything, but I didn't expect I would have to do it in the end. Roca couldn't help but complain. He didn't expect the plot to really change. If it weren't for him, the iron-blooded alien queen would definitely have survived. The Lone Wolf lying on the ground suddenly widened his eyes. After seeing the death of the iron-blooded alien queen, he looked at the figure beside him with relief. If he could still stand up, he would thank the other party with the most respectful etiquette. But all this is impossible. In the end, the lone wolf closed his eyes and ended his life completely. Chapter 167. The bodies of the iron-blooded alien queen and lone wolf were collected. They were all research materials. It's a pity that all this equipment is useless. Roca turned around and picked up the equipment scattered on the ground. It's a pity that most of Lone Wolf's Iron Warrior-style equipment were damaged, greatly reducing its research value. By the way, where's Lone Wolf's hand cannon? Roca suddenly remembered that Lone Wolf's shoulder cannon was picked up by humans because it was damaged. That thing was probably the most valuable thing in Lone Wolf's equipment for research. He can't let anyone snatch him away. Over there. Roca quickly locked onto the man holding the hand cannon, who was now running towards the center of the town with several of his companions. I want to get on a helicopter and leave here before the nuclear bomb arrives. This is also one of the few people who escaped from the town in the movie. And the 610 gun in his hand was also taken away by the military. In the movie, because of this hand cannon, the Earth's technology developed rapidly, and the universe was explored in just 100 years. This also connects to the story of Alien 1. It's just that the sequel of Predator vs. Alien was not filmed before it ended, which made countless people feel sorry. And now that Roca is here, this thing naturally cannot be left to the military. Without stopping, he quickly rushed in the direction where the man was. All the aliens along the way were cleared out. Whether hiding in a house or in a sewer, there is no escape from his hot eyesight. Hurry, get on the plane. Retired female soldier Kelly was the first to arrive at the helicopter. She shouted loudly for the people who had fallen behind to get on the plane quickly. At the same time, he kept shooting to repel the aliens attacking from all directions. The man holding the Predator's hand cannon would turn around and fire a shot from time to time, tearing the chasing aliens into pieces. It's a pity that the Predator's hand cannon no longer has the energy support of the armor and cannot fire continuously. It can only be released again after charging for several minutes. The man naturally understood the preciousness of this thing, so he was determined to take it with him even at the risk of being hunted down by the Iron Blood Warrior. As long as he can take this thing out, he will never have to worry about food and drink for the rest of his life. But the next moment, the hand cannon in his hand disappeared. Who is it? His things were stolen, and the man roared and looked around, trying to find the guy who stole his things. But after looking around, he couldn't see who had snatched the weapon from his hand. His roar actually attracted the aliens' attention. The next second, the man was knocked to the ground by several aliens. Then, he fell silent amidst a series of shrill screams. Roca, who got the hand cannon, sneered. This thing is not something that everyone can touch, so he deserved to die. Now that the things have been obtained. Then he did not hold back and cleaned up all the remaining monsters in the town. After the iron-blooded alien was gone, all the aliens were quickly cleaned up by Roca, even the alien eggs and face-huggers that had not yet hatched. No alien could escape his eyes. After doing all this, Roca came to the deep forest near the town and found Lone Wolf's small spaceship and the spaceship where the iron-blooded alien queen crashed. This thing has great research value. Although it is likely to attract the attention of other iron-blooded warriors, it doesn't matter. The Predator treats humans as ants, but in front of him, the Predator is also just an ant. After the end, Roca returned to the town hospital again. How is Mr. Roca? Sheriff Eddie was a little surprised to see him come back. After waiting anxiously in the hospital for so long, no monsters attacked again. This gave him great confidence. Maybe Mr. Roca really destroyed all the monsters in the town. In his expectant eyes, Roca nodded, yes, I have dealt with all the monsters. You are safe now. Hearing this, not only Sheriff Eddie, but also the survivors behind him had expressions of disbelief on their faces. Then everyone cheered for surviving the disaster. Great! Those monsters have finally been destroyed. We are saved. Woo woo woo, I'm finally saved. God! Looking at the people venting their emotions, Roca couldn't help but chuckle. Well, the commission has been completed, and it's time for me to leave. Mr. Roca, are you leaving so soon? Sheriff Eddie was a little caught off guard. Although Roca said that all the monsters had been dealt with, they were still a little afraid. So naturally we hope he can stay a little longer. However, Roca had no intention of staying here any longer. Besides, the military would definitely get involved in this matter later, which would inevitably cause some trouble. Although he was not afraid of the military, he was too lazy to cause more killing. Isn't it good to go home and hug your wife? You can contact the military right now to report the situation here, otherwise the military might launch a nuclear bomb in advance. After giving a warning, Roca flew into the sky and disappeared. By the time Sheriff Eddie reacted, there was no one in front of him. Seeing this, he hurriedly shouted to the sky, "Mr. Roca, we will transfer the commission money to your company's account as soon as possible." Hearing this, Roca couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly. The biggest recovery this time was not the commission money, but it is the Predator's high-tech equipment and aliens. Although aliens are very dangerous, they also have great research value. It just so happens that his monster shelter is currently under construction, so he will definitely make full use of it in the future. A moment later Roca returned home. "My dear, wait for me." In the living room, Maria and Bella were watching TV together. Suddenly, a figure hugged him. Hearing the familiar voice, the two women were not surprised at all. "Didn't you ask us to wait here, dear? We have been waiting for a long time." 5.4 Maria hugged his arm coquettishly. "Well, let's go take a shower first." Bella pinched her nose and looked disgusted. Do I stink?" Roca smelled his body and found that there was indeed some blood smell. No way. The entire town of Jason was massacred by aliens, and the smell of blood had long filled the entire town. It is inevitable to be contaminated with the smell of blood. Maria nodded, although she didn't mind, indicating that he smelled a bit bad. "Okay, let's go take a shower." Roca chuckled and went to the bathroom, holding the two women in each hand. For a moment, the sound of laughter and playfulness filled the entire bathroom. It's really fun. Chapter 168. Carlson Estate. Is this an alien? It looks very strange. It looks similar in size to a velociraptor, but is this creature an alien? There are such horrible creatures on alien planets. How scary. When Roca showed Heather, Nancy, and the others the monster containment device containing the alien, they were all amazed. It's a pity that the monster shelter has not been completed yet, otherwise we could study these alien creatures and their weapons and equipment. Heather looked regretful. In fact, she had been focusing on the construction of the monster shelter below the manor for some time, but the speed was really not fast enough. After all, this is a large project. Even if you are willing to spend money, it will definitely not be built in a year or two. Don't worry. They won't starve to death if they are kept in the monster containment device. Roca put one hand around Heather's slender waist and held the red wine in the other hand to taste it carefully. 18 There is no rush to study this matter, since he is not short of money anyway. He hoped that his power could grow quickly and absorb all of this. By then, his power will become the largest in the world, and even the President of the United States will have to bow and scrape to him. It's amazing. Heather was amazed and then put her arms around his neck and asked for a kiss. "Hey, you guys are so cunning." Nancy, Christine, and Jessie, who were admiring the alien, became indignant when they saw this. Roca was happy to give each of them a deep kiss. "By the way, I received an invitation." Roca sat at the bar and looked at Heather with a smile. "What invitation?" "It's about the first voyage of the Argonautica. They are about to sail to the South China Sea for a week and have invited celebrities and wealthy businessmen from all over the world. So you are also invited?" Roca was a little surprised. "Certainly." Heather smiled proudly. In fact, their family was quite famous in America. After she took charge of the family, she took over the land business. And the grades are excellent. So I was invited. How about you, are you interested in joining me? Heather asked with a smile, shaking the wine. Of course no problem, just us. Just us. Roca shrugged. Nancy and the others will be jealous now. There is still a week left. You have plenty of time to satisfy them. Heather said with a wink. All right. Roca shook his head with amusement, which was considered as his complete agreement to this matter. When Nancy and the others learned that the two of them were going to go on a cruise date alone, they were extremely envious. There's no way around it. Heather is the only one invited this time. At the same time, Heather can only bring one companion. So only 2 people could get on the boat. Fortunately, after Roca agreed to spend a day alone with them, Nancy and the others finally calmed down. Next week, Roca changes his girlfriend every day to accompany them shopping and playing. Until a week later. Roca and Heather left Carlson Manor and boarded the Argonautica near the coast of New York. This ship is really big, and its design is also very beautiful and spectacular. On the deck, Heather sighed. You have to know that before this I was just a working girl, and I never expected that one day I would be invited to board such a luxury ship. It's really good. Roca nodded. This luxury ship was indeed very good and its value was probably several $100 million. It can be seen that the owner of this ship is quite wealthy. You have good vision. Just then, a middle-aged man wearing glasses walked up from behind the two of them. You must be Heather, the heiress of the Sawyer family. Your grandmother was a very capable person. Thanks. Heather smiled and shook hands. I am Canton, the designer and owner of this ship. Hello Mr. Canton. Have fun, beautiful Miss Heather. After saying this, Canton turned and left without even looking at Roca. Heather stopped smiling after the other person left. She whispered, this person should be the one who invited me, but I don't think I've ever seen him before, and his eyes are very annoying. Baby, you are so beautiful. The purpose of inviting you is obvious. Roca saw everything that Canton was looking at, and he knew exactly what this guy was thinking. All he could say was that he hoped this guy wouldn't commit suicide, otherwise he wouldn't mind throwing him into the sea to feed the fish. Ignore that guy, let's go and have some fun downstairs. Heather didn't want to ruin the atmosphere because of others, so she took his hand and went to the next floor of the ship. This floor is a place for entertainment for the wealthy elites on the ship. There are all kinds of entertainment facilities. Of course, the most lively place is the casino. At this time, the entire gambling hall was crowded with people, the lighting effects were colorful, and various colored lights shone from all directions. Like a nightclub, this interweaving of light creates an atmosphere of mystery and excitement. Long table-shaped gambling tables are arranged neatly, and there are dozens of various gambling 740 machines next to them. The entire casino was extremely noisy, and the gamblers and spectators were all in high spirits. There were also waitresses wearing revealing clothes who kept walking around the gamblers, causing a burst of teasing and whistles. How is it? Do you like the environment here? Heather asked, smiling and looking at Roca beside her. It's okay. Actually, I'm not very good at gambling. It's okay to try it, just treat it as entertainment. Heather was obviously very interested. She pulled Roca to exchange chips worth $100,000, and then came to a gambling table. Do you know this? This is the most classic gambling roulette. The rules are obvious. You can choose a number from 1 to 36 on the roulette wheel to bet on. This is the way to play with the highest odds. Of course, you can also bet on colors and special numbers. Heather briefly explained to him how to play the game. Roca nodded thoughtfully. Can I place my bet now? Sure. The person who answered him was not Heather, but a female dealer wearing a revealing swimsuit. I have to say that this figure is really good. Heather smiled at him and motioned for him to place his bet quickly. Because the roulette is about to start. Chapter 169. Roca thought about it, took out 10,000 chips and placed them on the number 36. The odds of betting on a single number are the highest. Once he wins, he will get a bonus of 35 times the bet chips. That is $350,000. Of course, the chances of winning from 36 numbers are slim. Besides, the tricks of casinos are well known, so it is not surprising that there are control measures. Here we go. Heather looked at the ball on the roulette wheel with a little excitement. The ball began to spin on the roulette wheel, which was dazzling to watch. The 6 or 7 people sitting at the gambling table were all focused on the ball. Soon the ball started spinning slower and slower. Roca calculated that based on the speed, it was almost impossible for the ball to land on number 36. That won't work. After thinking for a while, he blew gently, and he controlled the breath very finely, just enough to push the ball without attracting anyone's attention. With his instigation, the ball landed accurately on number 36. Yeah, great, we used it. When the ball landed steadily on number 36, Heather screamed in surprise. The people around were also attracted by the movement here. After learning that someone had won the first prize, people began to talk about it from all around. Roca seemed relatively calm. He picked up the 360,000 chips pushed over by the dealer and said with a smile, "How about you try it, baby?" "Well, I'll try it too." Heather also took out 100,000 chips with great interest. After thinking for a while, she placed the chip on position 18. Hopefully I'll win. Of course, I think so. Roca smiled and nodded. With him adding fuel to the fire, how could it fail? As expected. When the roulette wheel ended again, the ball really stopped on number 17. Honey, that's great, I won too. Heather bounced excitedly in his arms. The gamblers around also looked at him in surprise. After all, the chance of winning by betting on a single number was only 1 in 10,000. I didn't expect to get hit twice in a row. If it wasn't for good luck, it would be hard to explain. Try again. Heather ignored the other gazes and instead stared at the roulette wheel again with great interest. This time she bet 100,000 chips on number 30. If you win, you will receive $3.5 million. The stakes are high. At this moment, the beautiful croupier who had just greeted everyone with a smile could not help but sweat profusely. She contacted someone through the headset. Soon a man in a suit came over. Is it okay for me to be the dealer in this game? The man in the suit looked at the gamblers with a smile. Several gamblers shook their heads, indicating that it was no problem. Then someone actually placed 10,000 chips on number 30. Roca looked at him and said nothing. This guy is quite smart. He actually knew to follow behind and pick up the leak. Then let him pick up the bargain. The roulette wheel starts again and the ball keeps spinning. Snap! Suddenly, a crisp sound rang in Roca's ears. He squinted his eyes and used his supervision to see through the table. He saw that the control mechanism inside the table was moving. There is indeed something fishy. Of course, he was used to this. In this case, let's see which is more powerful, high technology or superpowers. Roca blew a breath calmly. Under the control of the dealer's mechanism, the speed of the ball was obviously a little wrong. The dealer was a little panicked. After all, the speed of the ball was so obvious that even a fool could see that there was something fishy. In order not to be exposed, he had no choice but to turn off the controller. In the end, the ball landed exactly on number 30. Great, I won again. Heather was surprised and hugged Roca and kissed him. The crowd watching began to talk about it. Of course, the most incredible thing was naturally the dealer. He had no idea how the ball landed so accurately on number 30. This time he lost nearly $4 million. Even he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Let's go. Roca decided to quit while he was ahead. He asked the beautiful waitress beside him to bring all the chips he had won, and then took Heather to another gambling table. Compared to the turntable game, which is difficult to control, playing cards is even simpler. One circle down. Roca brought Heather back with $10 million. But as the old saying goes, quit while you're ahead. Otherwise, trouble is bound to come. Roca and Heather came for a vacation, not to cause trouble. The Argonautica slowly leaves New York. A few days later they arrived near the South China Sea. It is said that there is a deep trench in the South China Sea, which is close to the depth of the Himalayas. Countless ships have mysteriously disappeared here for hundreds of years. On the deck, Roca was enjoying the sea breeze with Heather. But I heard someone not far away explaining the legends of this sea area. Heather jokingly said, maybe there's some giant beast in this bottomless trench. Behemoth? Have you watched too many movies or something? Roca shook his head with amusement. Isn't it natural that there are monsters? Heather didn't think so. After all, Roca had encountered enough monsters, so what would happen if there was one more monster in the sea? Perhaps. Roca stretched lazily without caring about it, but suddenly seemed to remember something and looked into the sea with his supervision. The next second, a huge monster appeared in front of him. FK, there really is one. Kindness. Heather looked at him with some confusion. Okay, I admit you are right. Roca shrugged helplessly. Are there really monsters under the sea? Heather was a little stunned. She just said it casually. Is it true? That's a giant octopus, it doesn't seem to be. Roca looked carefully and found a strange-looking giant octopus in the trench several kilometers deep. The reason why it is said to be not an octopus is because it has many tentacles, which are completely different from ordinary octopuses. More like some kind of Cthulhu monster. Something indescribable. Ding! The system has updated the task Extreme Cold, please solve the giant underwater monster. It's this. Roca finally reacted and realized that they were actually on the luxury ship that was destroyed by the octopus tentacle monster in the Extreme Cold. And the monster under the water is none other than the deep-sea octopus monster from the Cthulhu series. No wonder it is different from ordinary octopuses. Just seeing the countless tentacles covered with sharp teeth on its body makes me feel a little sick. It is indeed a monster from the Cthulhu series. In fact, this was not the first time he had seen monsters from the Cthulhu series. In a sense, the fog monster is also related to the Cthulhu monster. But none of them are as disgusting as the real Cthulhu series monsters. Chapter 170. The Cthulhu octopus monster in front of him was the most disgusting monster Roca had ever seen. Maybe the appearance is not the most disgusting, but there is an indescribable feeling of disgust. What does the monster under the sea look like? Heather asked excitedly. I guess you don't want to see it. Anyway, it's a very disgusting octopus, a monster from the Cthulhu series. Cthulhu monster. Heather had some knowledge of the Cthulhu mythology, which contained some indescribable monsters that were very scary. That monster won't attack us, will it? Heather was a little worried. Roca nodded with a smile. Don't worry, we will definitely attack this luxury cruise ship. Hearing this, Heather felt choked. Why did he speak so strangely? She thought he would not attack her. Will they really attack? Then what should we do? Should we tell the captain about this and ask them to leave the sea area as soon as possible? Okay, but do you think the captain will believe you? Roca had no objection to telling Captain Atherton or Canton, the designer and owner of the cruise ship, about the monster on the seabed. But will they believe it? The answer is no. They certainly wouldn't believe such a fantastic thing. They may even laugh at you harshly. Thinking of this, Heather decisively gave up the idea of telling the captain about this matter. Then what should we do? Can we just watch the monster attack here? Don't worry, when the monster attacks, I will take action, but what? Heather was a little confused. It depends on whether they understand or not. Roca's mouth corners slightly raised. Want him to save people or solve the Cthulhu octopus monster? Sure. The prerequisite is that you are willing to pay money to save your life. You have to know that in the movie, everyone on the ship died, and only the male and female protagonists escaped. Now that there is an opportunity to pay money to save their lives, these wealthy businessmen on the ship are making a lot of money. Heather's eyes lit up when she learned of his plan. You know, the people on this ship are either wealthy businessmen, gentlemen, celebrities, or political bigwigs. They don't have any poor people. Even if each person receives $1 million in protection fees, the total profit can reach several $100 million. It's really a huge profit. So now they just have to wait for the Cthulhu octopus monster in the sea to attack the luxury cruise ship. Evening. Nothing to do. Heather dragged Roca to the casino on the lower floor to play around. After Heather found out that her previous winnings were due to Roca's manipulation, her enthusiasm for gambling faded a lot. Besides, she also knew the tricks behind the gambling table. So it's just a little fun to kill time. Of course Roca was happy to play with her. Yeah, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. Suddenly, a beautiful woman with a very good figure in a red evening dress accidentally bumped into Heather. But the one who gets hurt is naturally the other party. After all, Heather's body was strengthened by super soldier serum, so it would be strange if such a small friction hurt her. But it was not good for the other party. Although it was just a slight bump, it felt like hitting a wall. Let her grin. However, the woman did not say yes. Instead, she apologized and left. This woman. Heather was a little amused and helpless when she saw this. She was even planning to ask the other person if he was injured. I didn't expect to leave in such a hurry. When she turned to look at Roca, she found that he was staring at the woman who was leaving. Heather was a little angry. Have you seen enough? Everyone has left. Roca didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm not looking at this no matter how pretty she is, she's not as pretty as you, baby Heather. So what are you looking at? Heather was very pleased with his compliments, bid. Have you seen anything missing from your bag? Roca pointed to the red designer bag she was carrying. Yet it would have been fine if she hadn't looked at it, but when she did, Heather became a little nervous because she found that her bag had been opened at some point. The crystal necklace you gave me is gone. Heather looked at Roca anxiously. This crystal necklace was bought for her by Roca on the ship, and she liked it very much. Roca crossed his arms and touched his chin and said, "It must have been stolen by the woman who bumped into you just now. Damn it! How dare she steal my things? I must catch her," Heather said as she was about to give chase. "Leave it to me." Roca held her hand and indicated that he should take care of the matter. Okay, go quickly and come back quickly, and make sure to catch that woman. Heather said with gritted teeth and fierce eyes. Leave it to me. You just play here for a while. Roca made an okay gesture and then chased in the direction the woman in red left. If he guessed correctly, this woman should be called Kui Lien, the heroine of Extremely Cold. No wonder her looks are 80% as pretty as Heather's. Moreover, both her figure and appearance are pretty good. Walking through the crowd. Soon he found Kui Lien. But Kui Lien seemed to have noticed him, so she disappeared into the crowd in a flash. This guy is really quick to react. He made a profit. This crystal necklace is worth 3 million. In the women's restroom. Kui Lien happily took out the crystal necklace she had just found and looked at it. She really liked its luster and shape, and was reluctant to sell it. That guy is really rich, and he's very handsome. He's also very generous to his girlfriend, and he must have won tens of millions in the casino, right? When Kui Lien thought of the girl just now, she felt a little jealous. Why isn't such a handsome, wealthy, and generous man my boyfriend? When she thought of the beautiful girlfriend of that man, she became even more envious and jealous. But fortunately, she did not lose out, as the crystal necklace in her hand could definitely be sold for a good price. Yes, in fact Kui Lien is a professional thief. They specialize in stealing things from these wealthy businessmen and gentry. It was also because she was jealous of Heather's beauty and the fact that she had such a handsome boyfriend that she targeted her. Just when Kui Lien was about to put away the crystal necklace, suddenly a voice sounded in her ear. Stealing is not a good habit. Scared Kui Lien was startled by his sudden appearance, and Curie's crystal necklace almost fell off. Chapter 171. Be careful. As Roca finished his words, the crystal necklace returned to his hand. This is my gift to Heather. You can't break it. Who are you? Kui Lien found that the crystal necklace in her hand was suddenly in the other person's hand, and she looked at the man in front of her with some horror. Who? Of course it's the person you stole from. This is not a good habit, beautiful lady. Roca said as he approached her with a smile. Kui Lien was a little flustered and kept backing away, but the women's bathroom was so small, where could she retreat to? Don't come over here, you took the things back, didn't you? If you come over here again, I'll call for help. The woman's face was full of panic. She really didn't expect the other party to come to her so soon. Moreover, he used some unknown means to take the crystal necklace back from his own hands. More importantly, this is a relatively remote bathroom on this luxury cruise ship. Usually no one comes. That's why she came here to check out the crystal necklace. However, she didn't expect that her cleverness would backfire. Now, even if she called out to someone, there was no guarantee that anyone would hear her. Call someone? Then why don't you try calling someone? Roca grinned and leaned one hand on the wall behind her, looking down at her and doing a wall bang. The two looked into each other's eyes at such a close distance. Kui Lien suddenly felt very nervous, but unexpectedly she did not feel any disgust, but instead felt a little bit of anticipation. He is so handsome. At such a close distance, Kui Lien could clearly see the other person's angular face and fair and smooth skin. Even she was a little envious. She really wanted to ask, why do you, a man, want to have such a good skin? Have you ever considered the feelings of these girls? With all sorts of random thoughts in her mind, Kui Lien could only feel her heartbeat getting louder and louder, especially when she smelled the masculine scent on the other person, which made her blush and her heart beat faster. Miss, have you ever had a boyfriend? Ah. Kui Lien, who was lost in thought, had not yet reacted. What? I asked you if you have ever had a boyfriend? Or are you a virgin? Why should I tell you? Kui Lien's face flushed red. Even though Western women were quite unrestrained in this regard, they were not shameless enough to tell everything. Besides, it's an issue of privacy. Hurry up and tell me. Roca's voice was extremely overbearing, not giving her any time to think. Under this kind of pressure, Kui Lien answered subconsciously, of course not. Oh? You haven't had a boyfriend yet? Roca was a little surprised. He didn't expect that this girl had never had a boyfriend. But think about it, as a professional thief, it's reasonable that he can't have a boyfriend. So what? Kui Lien's voice became fierce. So what if she has never had a boyfriend? Is there any need to be so surprised? In fact, in Western society, it is a shameful thing to not have a boyfriend when you are almost 20 years old, and you will be laughed at. Of course, there are many places that still retain ancient traditions. It's nothing, I just want you to experience what it's like to have a boyfriend. As Roca finished his words, he lowered his head, lifted her chin and kissed her. Kui Lian's eyes widened. She didn't expect that he would suddenly kiss her forcefully. But this feeling is not bad, she even feels a little happy inside. Soon she was intoxicated by the stimulation of kissing. Until a moment. Only then did Roca let the girl go. However, Kui Lian was obviously already feeling it at this time. Her big eyes were full of mist. She held him tightly with both hands and twisted her body constantly. If Heather hadn't been waiting for him, Roca would have wanted to punish her severely immediately. This is your punishment for stealing. Do you understand? Let's see if you dare to steal again next time. Roca pinched her chin, then turned and left the bathroom. Only Kui Lian was left with an unsatisfied look. Seeing that he actually left like this, Kui Lian stomped her feet in anger. Damn it, is this guy still a man? She obviously didn't resist at all. Request flowers. Kui Lian had no choice but to leave angrily. The other side. Roca returned to the casino. Did you catch the thief? Heather took the crystal necklace and put it away, then looked behind him curiously, but did not see the woman who had just stolen something. It's okay, I've already punished her. Roca said nonchalantly. Yet. Heather looked at him strangely, but didn't ask any more questions. Because she won again. Even without Roca's cheating, her luck seemed pretty good. In just a short period of time, he won more than $100,000. It's getting late, let's go back to the room and rest. Heather happily put away the chips, and then the two of them returned to the room to rest. At the same time, a figure followed behind them. Tisk, it's really unfair that she's so pretty and so lucky. Kui Lian spit out a mouthful of jealousy. Why didn't she have such good luck? Otherwise, you wouldn't have to be a thief. Let me see if you really can't do it. Kui Lian has not forgotten what happened before. She wants to see if that handsome and domineering man is really capable. If this doesn't work, it would be a pity for adults. Bai is so tall and handsome. She quietly went to the next room. As for the door lock, it was useless to her as a professional thief. Then she fiddled with her tools and started eavesdropping. It's true, this eavesdropping tool is very effective. I can hear the sounds from the opposite room clearly. It would be fine if I didn't eavesdrop, but once I start listening I can't stop. 2 hours later, her neck felt a little sore. All the way to 2.5. Are you kidding me? Kui Lian couldn't help but twist her stiff neck, her eyes full of disbelief. I didn't expect that this man is not only handsome, but also so wild. This is really incredible. 4.9. Chapter 172. Just when Kui Lian twisted her neck and was about to leave the room, she didn't expect the door to be opened. Then a masculine presence embraced her. Who are you? Kui Lian shouted loudly, somewhat panicked. Hey, haven't you been eavesdropping for so long? Do you want to run away now? Roca leaned into her neck and smiled. You. Kui Lian reacted immediately, but he had just finished in the next room, how could he appear here? Why don't you say anything? Didn't you say I can't do it? Roca said with a joking look on his face. I didn't say that. Kui Lian quickly shook her head to deny it. How could the other party hear her if she was talking to herself? You dare to lie? You should be punished. Seeing that she was still so stubborn, Roca was determined to teach her a lesson. However, Kui Lian 523 was not only not panicked, but even dared to challenge, I just don't believe you can still do it. Roca raised his eyebrows and said, can you please not beg for mercy later, the next day? Roca felt his nose itchy and reached out to grab Heather's playful hand, then slowly opened his eyes. So early? Early? Don't think I don't know where you went last night. Heather immediately pointed out that he had cheated last night. Ahem, you also know that I have always been very strong in this aspect. What Roca meant by this is that you are not very good and have no choice but to eat secretly. Heather couldn't help but roll her eyes and didn't bother to argue with him. There's nothing we can do, it's Juan's fault for passing out. After a moment, Roca called Kui Lian and Heather to have breakfast together, and then they went to bask in the sun on the deck. Kui Lian was stunned by his actions. She didn't expect that he would bring him in front of his girlfriend right after they had an affair. What is this for? Unexpectedly, Heather didn't say anything. This made her give Roca a thumbs up. This is a real man. At this time, Roca glanced casually into the deep sea. Hey, that guy is getting closer. No, we are getting closer to where it is. So it's going to attack us soon. Heather frowned. That's about right. I'm afraid they'll start tonight at the earliest. Hey, what are you guys talking about? Kui Lian listened to the conversation between the two and felt confused. What is this talking about? What's going to attack them? Roca glanced at her and explained helplessly, we discovered a giant Cthulhu octopus monster deep in the sea. It will attack the luxury cruise ship we are on as early as tonight. What? Why didn't you tell the captain about this? Wait, are you kidding me? Kui Lian, who had reacted, looked at them with a strange expression. How is it possible that there are monsters under the sea? And they will also attack the luxury cruise ship they are on tonight? Are you sure this isn't a joke? Roca couldn't help but roll his eyes. Why should I tease you? You are my little lover now. I don't like being a lover. Kui Lian immediately refuted. Anyway, it's useless for you to know so much. When the monster attacks at night, just stay by my side and don't go anywhere else. You will be safe as long as you are by my side. As Roca spoke, he lazily lay on the lounge chair, enjoying the sunbath. Seeing this, Kui Lian couldn't help but mutter in her heart that she seemed to have underestimated the man in front of her. Because this man has countless secrets, it really makes her feel itchy. But it doesn't matter. We'll know whether he's pregnant or not in the evening anyway. Soon it was evening. Kui Lian was very happy when she found out that Roca could help her win the bet by cheating. So she roamed around casinos and made a lot of money. It only took a short while to win millions. If Roca hadn't persuaded her to stop, she would have continued. Of course, as a professional thief, she naturally understands the tricks of the casino. So I decided to stop. Even so, the people in the casino looked at her unkindly. Come on, let's go back to the room and Sister Heather and I will treat you tonight. Kui Lian exchanged the chips for cash and happily took his hand. I'm afraid that won't work. Well? You can't do it anymore. Kui Lian looked up at him provocatively. Roca slapped her butt speechlessly. What are you thinking about? Don't you remember what I said during the day? Kui Lian covered her buttocks and pouted in dissatisfaction. Here we go. As Roca finished his words, the entire luxury cruise ship began to shake violently. Kui Lian, who was standing unsteadily, screamed, but fortunately Roca caught her in time. But others on the ship were not so lucky. The ship shook and tilted violently, knocking most of the people to the ground. He even fell directly from the building. For a moment, the entire casino hall was filled with screams and cries, and it was extremely chaotic. The only ones who were all right were Heather and Kui Lian, who were held by Roca. However, the vibration of the hull came and went quickly. When everything calmed down, Kui Lian looked at the scene in front of her with horror. Her mind was a little blank and she had no idea what was going on. Nothing will go wrong, right? Heather inquired, frowning. She was mentally prepared for this situation, but it would be troublesome if the hull suffered huge damage. It's indeed a bit troublesome. Roca frowned. Wait here for a while, I'll go and take care of it. After saying this, he disappeared. The next second he arrived at the bottom of the ship. At this time, a large number of tentacles have drilled into the ship, causing the hull to rupture. If these tentacles continue to act recklessly, the entire luxury cruise ship will be sunk. That won't work. Roca was still planning to make money from the wealthy businessmen on the ship. If the luxury cruise ship was destroyed by 0.7, it would be troublesome to bring them back safely. So without saying a word, he cut off all the tentacles that had penetrated the hull, and then simply used some objects to temporarily block the broken hull. Roca then did the same thing and blocked several key places. As long as it can make it to the nearest island, I don't have many other requirements. After doing all this, Roca returned to Heather, Kui Lian, and the others. You're back. When she saw him coming back, Kui Lian suddenly grabbed his arm tightly nervously. It happened too suddenly. Looking back now, what Roca said during the day was true. There really are monsters attacking the ship. For a moment, Kui Lian was a little panicked and had no idea what to do. Chapter 173. Calm down, I told you, as long as you stay with me, Everything will be fine. Roca hugged the panicked Kui Lian and shouted to comfort her. After hearing this, Kui Lian calmed down. What should we do next? Heather was quite calm. Since Roca did not take them away in advance, it proved that the monster could not threaten them. This is absolute trust. Next. Roca raised his lips slightly and said with a smile, of course, we will blackmail these wealthy people. You can do this. He briefly explained his plan. Heather immediately said she understood, and then the three of them went to the broadcasting room. At this time, everyone in the broadcasting room had fainted due to the sudden impact. Heather performed a simple operation and then spoke on the radio. Everyone on board, please note that this cruise ship has been attacked by a terrifying monster. The hull is broken and it won't be long before the ship sinks. As soon as these words came out, the wealthy gentry who had just crawled up from the ground became panicked again. Everyone knew that if the ship sank, none of them would be able to escape. Please don't panic. Now there is a chance for you to survive. If you pay a protection fee of $1 million per person, we will protect you from monster attacks and send you to the shore safely. Listen carefully, as long as you pay $1 million. $1 million may be an astronomical figure for ordinary people. But it was nothing to the wealthy gentry on the ship. Who on this ship doesn't have tens of millions of dollars? Of course, this does not include staff such as waiters and security guards. $1 million for a life is a good deal in Roca's opinion. After all, if he didn't take action, all these people would die here. And the death was extremely tragic. The Cthulhu octopus is not kidding you. However, these words had a different meaning in the ears of this group of wealthy gentry. Damn it, this is a conspiracy you have been planning for a long time, right? This is kidnapping. I'm calling the police to arrest you. I am an American XX official. If you dare to attack me, you will be wanted by the United States. This is my ship, and someone is actually plotting terrorism instead of attacking. Roca was keenly aware of the angry curses and never expected that these people would regard all this as a terrorist attack. Wait, it looks like someone is indeed planning a terrorist attack. He suddenly remembered that in the movie, there seemed to be a team of mercenaries approaching the luxury cruise ship with torpedoes. However, when they approached the cruise ship, most of the people on the ship were eaten by the Cthulhu octopus monster. It seems I have to be careful. What to do? Heather also heard the curses from the wealthy gentry and felt helpless for a moment. If these wealthy gentry are determined not to believe it, then their plan will not be able to go forward. Roca looked down at the cabin and said with a smile, "It's okay. Tell them that the monsters in the sea have entered the cabin. If they don't pay, they will lose their lives. Also, if they are willing to pay the protection fee, they just need to shout loudly and I can save them immediately." Heather nodded and then repeated his words on the radio. The wealthy country gentry who heard what was said on the radio didn't take it seriously at all. What monster attacked? When they were 3-year-olds. This is nothing more than a very stupid form of blackmail. However, the people who happened to be in the lower cabin at the time did not think so. At this time, the lower cabin was flooded, and the Cthulhu octopus tentacle monster also quietly crawled in. These tentacles were as thick as buckets, and their tentacles were covered with sharp teeth. The next second, several wealthy businessmen who were running upwards cursing were dragged down by tentacles that emerged from the water. Then the water turned blood red. When the other wealthy businessmen saw this scene, they were so frightened that they ran away. However, how could they escape faster than those tentacles? The next moment, a tentacle emerged from the wall, blocking the way of several people. "Help whoever comes to rescue us, I will give you whatever money you want." Looking at the terrifying tentacles covered with sharp teeth in front of them, the wealthy businessmen were all scared out of their wits. At this time, they would be willing to give away their entire fortune. One of the wealthy businessmen suddenly remembered the voice on the radio and immediately shouted for help, "I am willing to pay $1 million as long as you can save me." As soon as the rich businessman finished speaking, Roca came in front of him. Only one person. Roca crossed his arms and looked at the 5 or 6 people present with interest. I'm willing to pay too." Another wealthy businessman also spoke hurriedly in horror. However, the remaining few were politicians. They were all arrogant and proud. When they saw Roca, they immediately commanded him, "Save us immediately." "Stupid bee!" Roca cursed, then grabbed the 2 wealthy businessmen who were willing to pay and took them to the other side of the corridor. And the next second after they left, the tentacles pounced towards the remaining officials. Click, click, accompanied by screams of terror and the sound of bones and flesh being torn apart. It only took a few moments for the tentacles to tear several people to pieces. Let's go, get out of here. The two rescued wealthy businessmen were almost scared to death when they saw this scene, and hurriedly urged Roca to take them away. Okay. Roca didn't waste any time, grabbed the two of them and went back to the upper deck of the cabin. At present, the upper level has not been invaded by tentacles and is still safe for the time being. Heather, I'll leave it to you to collect their protection money. Roca gave an order to the two women. No problem. The two women holding submachine guns nodded, indicating that there was no problem at all. With guns in hand, there is no need to worry that they will not pay the protection fee. Seeing this, the two wealthy businessmen who were still frightened had no choice but to write a check for $1 million. However, the check will not be valid until they leave. Although the two men were frightened, as unscrupulous businessmen they were not so easily fooled. Seeing this, Roca nodded with satisfaction, and then disappeared again. As the tentacles of the Cthulhu octopus monster continued to invade, people in the lower levels began to flee for their lives. Those who cannot escape will desperately seek help. For a while, Roca was really busy. Chapter 174. Unfortunately, most of the people at the bottom were killed by the tentacles, or they were too late to call for help. In the end, only more than 100 people were rescued by Roca. You have to know that there were more than 5,000 people on the entire cruise ship, and at least hundreds of people died in one fell swoop. The wealthy officials who had been calling for weapons before now began to doubt when they saw the people who were rescued still in shock and calm. However, these corrupt officials and unscrupulous businessmen are the kind of people who won't release their eagles until they see the rabbit. As the saying goes, one won't cry until he sees the coffin. They will not compromise with Roca until they see the monster with their own eyes. Roca naturally has a way to deal with this. Heather, tell them and give them 30 minutes to choose. After 30 minutes, if anyone is still unwilling to pay the protection fee, I will take the rescued people away and leave them on this ship to fend for themselves. Roca doesn't have much time to waste. It's not necessary to make this money. In fact, he is already very rich. Selena has annexed an entire blood clan. How much wealth has the blood clan accumulated over thousands of years? That's rich enough to rival a country. How do we leave with these people? Kui Lian was a little confused. Boom. Roca tapped her head and said, "You'll get medical advice soon. There are some small yachts in his system space." There was no problem in accommodating the more than 30 people who were rescued. Besides, there are many small yachts on this luxury cruise ship, which is enough. Kindness. Heather nodded and then repeated what he had just said on the radio. After hearing this, most wealthy officials still shrugged it off, thinking he was just blackmailing. After all, they didn't see Roca personally saving people. But some timid wealthy officials expressed their willingness to pay money to save their lives. At one time, there were more than 200 people willing to pay money to save their lives. That's enough. Roca looked at these smart people and nodded with satisfaction. Then, without further ado, he led a group of people to the deck. Since these remaining people want money but not their lives, let's fulfill their wish. At this time, as more and more tentacles drilled into the ship, the place that was previously blocked by Roca was opened again. Now the ship is completely doomed. The entire ship began to slowly tilt to one side. It won't take long for the ship to sink. The wealthy officials who noticed this panicked. However, when they wanted to ask for help, they found that Roca had already taken more than 200 people on several lifeboats and yachts. Are you really going to abandon them? Although Kui Lian is a professional thief, she is actually very kind-hearted. She couldn't bear to see thousands of people buried in the sea. It's their own choice, isn't it? Roca smiled nonchalantly, but his eyes were fixed on the deep sea. Just as he guessed, the Cthulhu octopus monster obviously had no intention of letting anyone go. After realizing that its prey had escaped, it immediately sent out some tentacles to chase after it. They're coming. Kui Lian looked at the sponge's surging tentacles with some horror. However, what she couldn't see was that there was a dark shadow with a diameter of about 1 kilometer underneath the entire luxury cruise ship. If you look down from the sky, all of them, including the hundreds of meters long luxury cruise ship, are wrapped in shadow. People who suffer from thalassophobia will definitely get a chill when seeing this scene. That's right, the shadow of the giant underwater is the real body of the Cthulhu octopus monster, with a diameter of nearly 1,000 meters, a real forest beast. If this guy appeared on land, he would probably be bigger than the octopus monster Gallows in Ultraman. Is this the full appearance of the Cthulhu octopus monster? Even Roca, who had seen it many times, was still amazed. What's wrong? Heather looked at him a little strangely. It's okay, it's just that the big guy down there doesn't intend to let us go. Roca smiled and said, Heather, you lead everyone to move towards the island in the west, I'll go and deal with that guy. Kindness. Heather nodded without hesitation. Wait, you want to go down and stop that guy? Kui Lian looked at him in disbelief. Although she had never seen the terrifying tentacle monster, she could guess how terrifying it was. How weak can a monster that can overturn an entire ship be? Now you tell her that you are going to go down and deal with the tentacle monster? Is this a joke? Is this something that humans can solve? Roca didn't explain, he just suddenly hugged her and gave her a forceful kiss. Just wait for me here obediently. Leaving behind a word, he plunged into the sea. The wealthy officials who saw this scene were somewhat confused and became noisy for a while. Shut up, everyone. Follow us if you want to live. No one should fall behind. Otherwise, if you die, don't blame us for not reminding you. Heather shouted domineeringly at everyone. For a moment, all the wealthy officials present were stunned by her aura. Then Heather drove the yacht towards the island that Roca mentioned, and the other life rafts followed obediently. They had no choice. It was obviously impossible to leave the sea area by life raft. They could only go to a nearby island and wait for rescue. At the same time, in just a short while, a large number of tentacles penetrated into the luxury cruise ship. In just a moment, almost all the passengers were swept away by the tentacles. Naturally, none of those who were swept away by the tentacles were spared, and all became the dinner of the Cthulhu octopus monster. Before they died, these unscrupulous businessmen and corrupt officials, of Qianli, regretted why they did not listen to advice. They could have been rescued by paying $1 million, but in the end they died miserably because of their greed. It's a pity that they regretted it but didn't use it. After dealing with the gifts on the cruise ship, the Cthulhu octopus monster immediately set its sights on the escaped prey. A large number of tentacles swept towards the escaping lifeboats and yachts from the deep sea. However, the next second, a red light flashed in the dark deep sea. A large number of tentacles were instantly cut off by the red light. Then the red light lit up again, and this time it shot directly into the body of the Cthulhu octopus monster. In an instant, the heat vision penetrated its body, shot out from the sea on the other side, and illuminated the sky. The wealthy businessmen and officials who were still in shock on the lifeboat were all stunned when they saw this scene, and some of them even shouted to God loudly. Chapter 175. He was pierced by heat vision and didn't die. In the deep sea, Roca was a little surprised when he looked at the huge Cthulhu octopus monster in front of him. It was only injured after being pierced by his heat vision. It seems like each tentacle of this monster has its own independent thoughts, and the whole thing is a huge collective mind? If that's the case, it will be difficult to deal with. Because even if this monster is cut into countless pieces, it will not die. It can only be killed by burning it completely to ashes. Thinking of this, Ika directly used the fire of hell to burn it. The Cthulhu octopus monster seemed to have also discovered the threat of this flame, so it blocked its countless tentacles in front of it. Once the tentacles are ignited by the flames of hell, they will be cut off immediately. This will prevent the spread of fire. And those tentacles will regenerate. This gave Roca a headache. It was definitely not an easy task to burn a creature of this size to death with the hellfire, although the hellfire was not bad for seawater. But its power is inevitably reduced a lot in that case. Roca looked up at the night sky and found that the sun had risen from the sea without him noticing. 050 So he went directly under the Cthulhu octopus monster, used the biological force field to lift it up, and then rushed out of the sea with all his strength. At the same time, a few kilometers away, Heather and Kui Lian looked at Roca worriedly, as he had not surfaced for such a long time and there was still no movement. Even Heather, who always trusted Roca unconditionally, couldn't help but worry. However, it was at this moment. A huge shadow suddenly appeared on the sea surface, and then the sea level rose, and the huge shadow broke through the sea surface and slowly rose. God! It's a monster! What a horrible monster! Oh my God! It's a demon! The wealthy businessmen and officials who were watching this huge monster from a distance were all stunned. This monster completely refreshed their worldview. There were even devout believers who prostrated themselves and shouted to God. Not only them, but even those who often heard from Roca about the various monsters he encountered couldn't help but feel a little shocked. The monster in front of me is really too big. Even bigger than the fog monster behemoth. After all, behemoth's pair of long legs account for 70% of his height, and his actual size is far smaller than the monster in front of him. Especially the large number of tentacles waving constantly, which really makes people's scalp tingle. It's so horrible. However, as they looked on in horror, the octopus monster slowly left the sea and flew into the sky. It's Roca. Heather keenly discovered Roca under the Cthulhu octopus monster, but it was a little unclear because it was blocked by a large number of tentacles. But she knew where Roca must be. What did you say? Kui Lian, who was standing by, was stunned by her words. Could she understand that Roca had lifted the monster up and made it fly? How is this possible? Is her boyfriend really God? Roca didn't have time to pay attention to their thoughts. After lifting the Cthulhu octopus monster out of the water, he continued to accelerate the monster towards the sun. His idea is simple. Since it is difficult for the flames of hell to burn this monster, let it be burned to death by the sun. He just didn't believe that this wouldn't solve the problem. The Cthulhu monster's resistance was much weaker after leaving the sea, but it still kept resisting because it could feel the danger it would encounter next. But no matter how it resisted, it was useless. In just a moment, Roca pushed it out of the atmosphere. Arriving in outer space, without air resistance, his speed became faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, you enter superluminal state. In just a few minutes, Roca pushed the Cthulhu octopus monster to the light ball layer. The photosphere is the surface of the sun that can be seen with the naked eye from Earth, and its thickness is about 500 kilometers. Regions of the sun above and below it radiate very little visible light, so only the photosphere is visible to the naked eye. According to measurements, the temperature of the solar photosphere is about 5,772 degrees Celsius. This temperature is enough to melt any substance on Earth. Although the Cthulhu octopus monster was very scary, it began to burn at this temperature. Seeing this, Roca stopped immediately. But the force of inertia still carries the Cthulhu octopus monster forward towards the Sunday comfortable. Feeling the energy of the sun shining on his body, Roca felt as if all the pores in his body were opened and madly absorbing the energy of the sun. It's a pity that the speed of becoming stronger is still too slow. You should know that Supreme Superman also absorbed the sun's energy for 15,000 years before he became Golden Superman. Therefore, it is not realistic to rely on the sun to become stronger quickly. That's really too slow. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission Extreme Cold. Rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host for increasing his Kryptonian bloodline by 2%. We're done. Roca nodded in satisfaction at the reward, then turned and flew towards the earth. In a moment he was back on board. My dear, you are back. Heather and Kui Lian were very surprised to see him suddenly appear. Kindness. Roca smiled and hugged the two women in his arms. How's it going? Did you deal with the monster? How was it solved? Was it sent to outer space? Heather and Trillian were both very curious about how he had dealt with the monster. Roca shrugged and smiled, if you send it to the sun, it will definitely die. Incredible. Kui Lian's eyes widened, totally unable to understand how such a thing could be done. Isn't this too outrageous? Actually lifting a monster and sending it into the sun, this kind of thing can probably only appear in movies. On the contrary, although Heather was a little shocked, she was not surprised. Her man was so strong, whether in bed or anywhere else. Just thinking about this made her feel a little wet. There are many things you won't believe. Learn more from Heather in the future. Roca intends to let Kui Lian learn more knowledge from Heather so that she can help Heather in the future. I will. Kui Lian nodded happily and agreed. As a professional thief, no, in fact, if there were any other way to survive, she would not have become a thief at all. Now that she had a chance to soar to the sky, she naturally wouldn't let it go. Besides, she wanted to discover more secrets about Roca. This man was really curious. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.